Chapter 1423. I'm not sure. The Wansho sect didn't lie about that. Because even the Wansho sect ancestor didn't know if Longao was still in the sect. The Wansho sect ancestor certainly hoped that Longao was still there. Long Tian had already started to refine the origin energy. No matter when, the refining speed in his body wouldn't slow down. Otherwise, Long Tian wouldn't have come out of seclusion so casually. If the myriad beast ancestor knew that Long Tian had successfully devoured the origin energy, it was unknown if the myriad beast ancestor would still be sitting there calmly. Brother Long, you can stay if you want. Forget it. Longao should have left. Longao wasn't a fool. Long Tian knew that since Longao had already disappeared and offended the Wansho sect, he wouldn't stay and wait for death. In that case, I won't see you off. Long Tian got up and left. The Wansho sect ancestor sneered as he watched Long Tian disappear. Long Tian, who had just left the Wansho sect and was about to continue searching for Longao, suddenly heard a voice in his mind. His expression changed slightly. Long Tian didn't dare to be careless. He immediately got up and flew toward the boundless void. Soon, he became a black dot and gradually disappeared. At the same time, in a secret chamber of the Martial Artists Alliance. Since leaving the primordial battlefield, Tong Zun had started to refine the origin energy in seclusion. After a period of hard work, Tong Zun had also started to refine it successfully. In other words, whether it was Tong Zun or Long Tian, as long as they had enough time, it didn't matter whether they were in seclusion or not. This was because they would definitely finish refining it and reach the peak of martial arts. These were troubled times. Tong Zun had already started to refine the origin energy. There was no need for him to continue his seclusion as it would attract other people's attention. Because of this, Tong Zun came out of seclusion and was ready to deal with Longao to save face for the Martial Artists Alliance. At this moment, a voice also sounded in Tong Zun's mind. His expression changed slightly, and he also flew toward the boundless void. Outer Sea. At the bottom of the sea, inside the Crystal Palace. Tong Zun and Long Tian arrived outside the Crystal Palace at the same time. When they saw each other, their faces were filled with surprise. They asked in unison, "Why are you here? Master Clairvoyant?" The two of them nodded. They were both a bit helpless and a bit surprised. The two of them knew that the martial heaven continent's strongest person wasn't the heavenly Daos, but the God Diviner. Not only was the exalted Master God Diviner exceedingly powerful, but he also had the Tao of divination, which allowed him to predict everything in the world. Could it be that Master God Diviner had already divined that the two of them would devour the essence energy? The two of them looked at each other and understood each other's intentions. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't worried. The two of them were well aware that if Master God Diviner found out about this matter, it would be hard to say whether the outcome would be good or bad. Let's go. If it's a blessing, we can't stop it. If it's a disaster, we can't avoid it. Helplessly shrugging, Long Tian stepped into the Crystal Palace gloomily. In the Crystal Palace. Master Clairvoyant. Both Tong Zun and Long Tian bowed respectfully when they saw Master Clairvoyant in front of them. Before successfully devouring the essence energy and breaking through to the peak of the martial path, the two of them were well aware that they were nothing more than farts in front of Master God Diviner. As long as Master God Diviner wanted to, he could exterminate them at any time. Sit! Not daring to be the slightest bit careless, the two of them respectfully sat down. Even now, the two of them still didn't know why Master God Diviner had called them here. The two of them only hoped that Master God Diviner didn't know about them devouring the essence energy. If my guess is correct, you should have already begun to refine the essence energy. Based on this speed, it will take at most 3 years for you to finish refining it and condense the taboo energy to break through to the peak of the martial path. Hearing this, the two of them were startled. As expected, it seemed that Master God Diviner already knew about them devouring the essence energy. The two of them were extremely excited that they would be able to complete the refinement in 3 years. However, in this situation, after a brief moment of excitement, they were even more worried. If Master God Diviner decided to attack them, they wouldn't have the slightest chance. Not to mention them, even the Heavenly Tao wouldn't dare to provoke Master God Diviner. After all, Master God Diviner's strength was there for all to see. Master God Diviner seemed to be able to guess their worries. He smiled and said bluntly, "The matter of the ancient battlefield was arranged by me. Do the two of you really think that you can obtain the essence energy with just the two of you?" What did he mean? Master God Diviner, we don't understand what you mean. It's very simple. I want the two of you to refine the essence energy and break through to the peak of the martial path within 3 years. If either of you can't do it, you will disappear from this world after 3 years. Tong Zun and Long Tian were no fools. Of course, they knew what Master God Diviner meant. The two of them looked at each other, not knowing whether this was a good thing or a bad thing. Master God Diviner, we will do our best to refine the essence energy. Within 3 years, we will definitely break through to the peak of the martial path. Although they didn't know what Master God Diviner meant, the two of them knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for them. Master God Diviner had just said that the two of them would definitely be able to refine the essence energy within 3 years. The two of them trusted Master God Diviner's words. Master God Diviner, if the Heavenly Taoists learn of this, our situation will be very dangerous. At this point, Tong Zun and Long Tian didn't continue, but the meaning of their words was clear. Everyone on the martial heaven continent knew this. Over countless years, many nirvana experts had appeared on the martial heaven continent, but without exception, not a single one of them had been able to break through to the peak of the martial path. The biggest reason was that the Heavenly Taoists controlled all the essence energy. No matter who it was, they couldn't obtain it. In other words, no matter who it was, as long as they obtained the essence energy, there would only be one result. They would be killed by the Heavenly Taoists. With the power of the Heavenly Taoists, who could fight them? Don't worry about that. As long as you don't say it yourself, even the Heavenly Taoists won't be able to sense the essence energy within you. Master God Diviner suddenly unleashed a burst of energy that enveloped the two of them. The two of them didn't dare to resist. Furthermore, they knew that Master God Diviner was doing this to help them conceal their essence energy. If that was the case, then even if the Heavenly Taoists personally came, they wouldn't be able to sense their essence energy. That would allow them to relax. Chapter 1424. The matter between the Myriad Beast sect and Dragon Valley was still the most important matter in the 9 provinces continent. Provoking the Myriad Beast sect and causing a ruckus, Longao's madness had reached a new level. As for Dragon Valley, even now, Long family was unable to break the barrier. Everyone knew that even Long Tian was unable to break through the Dragon Valley Chi barrier. Was there anyone on the martial heaven continent who could do that? Longao and Dragon Valley had won this battle. Within the Myriad Beast sect, the Myriad Beast's ancestor and the others were still unwilling to give up. They still believed that Longao would continue to stay in the Myriad Beast's cliff. At the same time, the 4 of them were extremely shocked that Longao's spatial item could instantly disappear. Shirchong, you've already sealed the spirit vein? The 4 of them already knew that Longao had come for the spirit vein. It seemed that Longao wouldn't give up until he obtained the spirit vein. Ancestor, don't worry. I've already sealed the spirit vein. As long as Longao dares to go, we'll definitely catch him. Shirchong was extremely confident. Longao's spatial item is no small matter. We have to be careful. We can't let Longao leave. The spatial divine artifact in Longao's hands, even the Myriad Beast ancestor, was extremely fearful. Shirchong's expression was very gloomy. Thinking about it. In the end, Shirchong still said, Old ancestor, if this goes on, it's not a solution. Even if we can find Longao every time, Longao can use the spatial divine tool in his hands to successfully escape every time. Shirfeng also followed and said, Big brother is right. Old ancestor, the reason why Longao has not left the sect is because he relies on the spatial artifact in his hands and is unscrupulous. If this continues, I am worried about the heaven and earth's spiritual vein. How could the myriad beast's ancestor not understand what Shirchong and Shirfeng meant? If we want to stop Longao from using his spatial item, there's only one way. That's to interfere with the spatial fluctuations. Ancestor, what should we do? The myriad beast ancestor then told the two of them the method. In the dragon seal space, Longao, who had been waiting for 5 days, knew that nothing had happened to his samsara doppelganger, but he was very anxious. According to Xiling, the weak space was extremely dangerous. Even a Nirvana realm warrior would be killed by the forbidden power in the weak space, let alone an ordinary person. One could only imagine how terrifying the weak space was. Right at this moment, Longao was overjoyed because he had sensed the call of his reincarnation avatar. Xiling, come out! Upon hearing this, Xiling was overjoyed. Not daring to be careless, Xiling and Long Fu joined forces and forcefully tore open the space crack. Only the heaven and earth aura. Longao wasn't afraid at all because he had already condensed his own heaven and earth aura. Longao also released his heaven and earth aura. 1 against 3, he was still instantly suppressed. If this continued, there was only one result, and that was death. Unable to sense the aura of the dragon seal space, Longao wasn't surprised at all. After the previous incidents, the myriad beast ancestor would definitely be prepared. As expected, the myriad beast ancestor interfered with the spatial fluctuations, making it difficult for him to enter the dragon seal space. Big trouble. Cursing in his heart, Longao stood up and coldly looked at the 4 people in front of him. He suddenly said, Myriad beast ancestor, you just want the Jianling. If I die, I can guarantee that you won't be able to get the Jianling. Do you believe me? The 3 people who were about to continue attacking stopped abruptly. The myriad beast ancestor smiled and said, Longao, I can give you a chance. As long as you hand over the Jianling, our previous grievances will be written off. In the future, my myriad beast sect will fully support your dragon sect. How about it? In front of the Jianling, everything was just fleeting clouds. Sneering, Longao said, Myriad beast ancestor, if you want the Jianling, there's no problem. But you have to agree to one of my conditions. Otherwise, even if I have to die together with you, I won't hand over the Jianling. I'm a man of my word. Speak. The myriad beast ancestor wasn't a fool. Of course, he wasn't stupid enough to agree immediately. If Longao's conditions couldn't be agreed to, would the myriad beast sect have to agree? This was something that was completely impossible. It was also because of this that the 4 of them really wanted to know what kind of conditions Longao would propose. Chapter 1425. My condition is very simple. Longao smiled. His smile was a little strange and sinister. Thousand Beast Ancestor, as long as you kill the 3 people beside you, the Jianling will be yours. Before the 4 could speak, Longao continued. I believe you know better than me what it means to have the Jianling at the peak of martial arts. If you miss this opportunity, you won't have the chance to break through to the peak of martial arts in the future. Hearing this, Shirchong, Shirfeng, and Shirpatian were furious. The 3 of them knew very well that it was unknown whether the ancestor would really take action for the Jianling. Taking a step back. If the ancestor really took action, how would they deal with it? The Jianling at the peak of martial arts was an irresistible temptation. Ancestor. Waving his hand. The Thousand Beast Ancestor sneered and said, Longao, do you think I'll agree to it? Of course you will. Looking at the confident Longao, the Thousand Beast Ancestor laughed and said, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I won't agree to it. Longao wasn't surprised at all because he had already guessed that the Thousand Beast Ancestor wouldn't agree to it. If the Thousand Beast Ancestor was 100% sure to get the Jianling, he might kill the 3 of them in order to devour the Jianling. But now, the Thousand Beast Ancestor clearly knew that he hadn't gotten the Jianling yet. If he rashly killed the 3 of them and still couldn't get the Jianling in the end, what should he do? Hearing the Ancestor's decision, the three of them finally breathed a sigh of relief. Longao, let me give you a piece of advice. It's best if you hand over the sword's spirit. Or your sister. You dare to insult the ancestor? He snorted coldly. Ignoring the three of them, Longao sneered and said, Chong, you must remember that he's your ancestor, not mine. A bunch of shameless things. The myriad beast's ancestor stopped Chong from continuing. He smiled and said, Longao, you can no longer use your spatial artifact. Do you think you can still leave? The myriad beast's ancestor was full of confidence. The four of them had already interfered with the spatial fluctuations. Without the help of the spatial artifact, could Longao still leave? Longao's heart was heavy. Unable to enter the dragon seal space, this matter was indeed very troublesome. However, Longao's face was calm as he said indifferently, Myriad Beast's ancestor, why don't we make a bet and see if I can successfully leave this place? Bet? Another bet? Hearing the word bet, Shifeng's expression became increasingly gloomy. This was because he had already suffered 2 losses. To be honest, Shifeng was truly afraid now. The more Longao acted like this, the more uncertain the myriad beast's ancestor felt. Longao, no matter what you do, you're dead. Looking left and right, the myriad beast's ancestor ordered coldly. Attack. Chong and the other 2 nodded their heads. At the same time, all 3 of them shot out. As Nirvana state martial artists, their strength was needless to say. If they were to clash head-on, Longao would definitely lose. Unable to enter the dragon seal space, and unable to clash head-on, what should he do? Squeak, squeak, squeak. Just then, the squeaking sounds rang out continuously. Hearing these sounds, Longao's heart leaped with joy. With a whoosh, the little rat appeared. As the weapon spirit of the blood pool, Longao did not know just how strong the little rat was. However, he was certain of one thing. The strength of the blood pool's weapon spirit was definitely not to be underestimated. Whether or not the little rat could withstand the attacks of 3 Nirvana state martial artists was still an unknown. But now that things had come to this, Longao could not be bothered about anything else. In fact, Longao also had his own selfish motives. Even if the 3 of them killed the little rat, he would not have the slightest opinion. No matter what, the little rat was the weapon spirit of the blood pool. Once the weapon spirit grew up and merged with the blood pool, the consequences would be unimaginable. The little rat's speed was extremely fast. It was impossible to see its figure clearly. However, the 3 of them did not put Longao and the little rat in their eyes. The 3 of them joined forces and attacked fiercely. The 3 of them did not attack Longao. Instead, they attacked the little rat. Everyone thought that the little rat would vanish under this attack. But what was the result? The 3 of them felt that their full-strength attack was like attacking an iron plate. Not only that, but the 3 of them were even forced back. Looking at the little rat in front of Longao, not only the 3 of them, but even the myriad beast's ancestors' expression changed. What kind of divine beast was this? The 4 of them could sense that the little rat in front of Longao was not a Nirvana state divine beast. It was just a divine beast that had just broken through to the supreme Tao realm. In that case, the little rat's physical defense was a little too abnormal. When the 3 of them joined forces, not to mention a divine beast, even a Nirvana state divine beast could not contend against them. Even the divine beast Black Tortoise could not achieve such a defensive power. If they did not see it with their own eyes, they would find it hard to believe. Seeing that the little mouse was actually able to withstand the combined attack of the 3 people, Longao was pleasantly surprised. The little rat could be considered to have saved his life. However, Longao was very worried. The reason was simple. The stronger the little rat was, the greater the trouble it would face in the future. After all, the danger of the blood pool and the weapon spirit was right there. The myriad beast's ancestor was also shocked. With a stride, his figure had already dashed out. Before he arrived, his terrifying aura had already pressed down fiercely. As the number 1 under the heavenly Tao, the myriad beast's ancestor's strength was obvious. Even Tong Zun and the others were no match for him. The little rat dashed out again and collided with the myriad beast's ancestor fiercely. The difference in strength between the little rat and the myriad beast's ancestor was huge. The little rat was directly sent flying in a head-on collision. Overjoyed, the myriad beast ancestor did not hesitate and continued to attack. Longao was well aware of his own strength. Of course, he would not seek his own death. Step by step he retreated. Without the help of the spatial teleportation, Longao's speed had obviously slowed down. The myriad beast ancestor obviously had the intention to kill. He attacked with all his might. If Longao was hit by this punch, he would be half crippled even if he did not die. At the critical moment, a bird cry was heard. At the same time, there was a strong fluctuation in the space in front of Longao. The myriad beast ancestor sensed the fluctuation and seemed to know who had come. He stopped and looked coldly at Longao in front of him. He said, "Brother Lu, it is the honor of the myriad beast sect to have you here." A gentle and elegant middle-aged man appeared. It was none other than the patriarch of the Phoenix clan, Lu Yi. Due to his great strength, Lu Yi could transform into a human. There were even rumors that Lu Yi's strength had surpassed the Phoenix ancestor. Otherwise, the myriad beast ancestor would not be so polite. Everyone knew that the Phoenix ancestor had passed on all his strength to Lu Yi through the enlightenment. That was why Lu Yi had the strength he had today. Chapter 1426. The Three Supreme Races of Spirit Beasts. The Phoenix Clan, the Qilin Clan and the Dragon Clan. The immemorial Qilin and the immemorial Divine Dragon were still around. Only the immemorial Phoenix had fallen and passed all its power to Lu Yi. In other words, Lu Yi's status and strength were comparable to the Thousand Beasts' old ancestor, Tong Zun, Jian Tian and the others. It was because of this. Looking at Lu Yi who suddenly appeared in front of them, the Thousand Beasts' old ancestor, and the others had ugly expressions. No one knew why Lu Yi would appear out of nowhere. Could it be that Lu Yi was here for Longao? "Brother Shi, long time no see. How have you been?" "Brother Lu, let's cut the pleasantries. You and I are both smart people. Why have you come to my Thousand Beasts sect this time? Please tell me directly." Straight to the point. The Thousand Beasts' old ancestor was a straightforward person. Lu Yi admired his character. Nodding, Lu Yi glanced at Longao behind him and said with a smile, "Brother Shi, since that's the case, I'll get straight to the point. Longao and I are fated. I hope Brother Shi can give me face and let Longao go this time. How about it?" As expected. But what the Thousand Beasts' old ancestor could not figure out was the connection between Lu Yi and Longao. After all, one was the patriarch of the Phoenix clan and the other was only the master of the Dragon sect. The difference in status between the two was like heaven and earth. With Lu Yi's status, since she had already spoken, even the Thousand Beasts' old ancestor had to give face. If it was any other matter, even if it was because of the divine beast Black Tortoise, since Lu Yi had spoken, he believed that the Thousand Beasts' old ancestor would not continue to make things difficult for Longao. At least for now. But in the current situation, the Thousand Beasts' old ancestor would definitely not agree to Lu Yi's request. The reason was simple. The Thousand Beasts' old ancestor definitely did not care whether Longao lived or died. There was only one thing that the myriad beast ancestor cared about, and that was the so-called sword spirit that had reached the peak of the martial way. This was because the myriad beast ancestor knew very well that if he missed this opportunity, he would not have another chance to devour the origin energy in the future. In the Sky Martial continent, the origin energy had been controlled by the heavens and no one could touch it. Thinking of this, "Brother Lu, Longao killed my divine beast, the Black Tortoise. This debt cannot be forgiven. Brother Lu, please do not interfere in this matter." Lu Yi seemed to be a little surprised, because he did not expect that the myriad beast ancestor would not give him face at this point. This matter was a little tricky. Looking at Lu Yi who was so close to him, Longao was also a little surprised. Of course, he knew Lu Yi's identity. Lu Yi, the patriarch of the Phoenix clan, was one of the most powerful experts in the world. Not only that, Lu Yi was also Aoshue's grandfather. With his relationship with Aoshue, under normal circumstances, Lu Yi should be dealing with him. Why would he help him? Brother Shi, give me some face. No. As their attitudes cooled down, the atmosphere began to escalate. Both of them were the most terrifying experts in the world. Once they started fighting, the consequences would be unimaginable. The three people behind the myriad beast ancestor looked at each other, and saw helplessness and fear in each other's eyes when they saw that a battle was about to break out. If Lu Yi insisted on protecting Longao, then this battle would be unavoidable. Brother Shi, if that's the case, you and I will fight. If I lose, I will immediately turn around and leave. If you lose, let me take Longao away. How about it? Okay. This battle was already destined. Brother Shi, you and I just have different standpoints. There's no need to fight to the death. What do you think? Nodding, the myriad beast ancestor did not say anything, but he agreed with Lu Yi. If it were other Nirvana realm martial artists, even if it were Jian Tian, Long Tian, or Tong Zun, he would not have the slightest fear. Among the divine beasts, even the immemorial Qilin, immemorial Phoenix, and immemorial divine dragon were not in his eyes. The myriad beast ancestor was known as the strongest person under Tian Dao. In the Tianwu continent, other than the oracle and Tian Dao, the myriad beast ancestor was only afraid of one person, and that was the patriarch of the Phoenix clan, the middle-aged man who suddenly appeared in front of him, Lu Yi. Perhaps the myriad beast ancestor did not care about Lu Yi's strength. But 10,000 years ago, the immemorial Phoenix had borrowed the strength of the entire Phoenix clan and used the power of heaven and earth, including the taboo power, to forcibly raise Lu Yi's strength. After 10,000 years of accumulation, no one knew what level Lu Yi's strength had reached. Others might not know, but the myriad beast ancestor knew very well that the current Lu Yi was probably the strongest person under Tian Dao. Whether it was Lu Yi or the myriad beast ancestor, once the two of them devoured the origin energy, it would take at most 3 months, or even a month, for the two of them to break through to the peak of the martial path. No one continued to speak, because this battle was not only about who could take Longao away, it also meant that this battle would determine who the strongest person under Tian Dao was. The two of them did not move, but Longao, Shichong, and the other three knew that this battle had already begun. A battle of primordial spirits. When one's cultivation broke through the supreme divine path and reached the so-called Nirvana realm, the spiritual soul would transform into a primordial spirit. In other words, as long as the primordial spirit of a Nirvana martial artist was not destroyed, it would not be destroyed, because the primordial spirit was different from the spiritual soul. The success rate of the primordial spirit entering the path of reincarnation was much higher than that of the spiritual soul entering the path of reincarnation. It was needless to say how important the primordial spirit was to a Nirvana martial artist. Because of this, under normal circumstances, a battle between Nirvana martial artists would not be a battle of primordial spirits. If the primordial spirit was damaged, the consequences would be unimaginable. But the four of them had never thought that the battle between the myriad beast ancestor and Lu Yi would be a battle of primordial spirits. The four of them did not dare to say a word, and all of them stared at the two people in front of them. A battle of primordial spirits was rare to see in 100 years, especially a battle between the strongest martial artists under Tian Dao. It was even rarer to see in 1,000 years. As the time of the collision between the primordial spirits grew longer and longer, both of their bodies began to tremble slightly, and beads of sweat the size of beans fell from their foreheads. The battle of primordial spirits had reached a climax, and the outcome could be decided at any time. In Longao's heart, of course, he hoped that Lu Yi would win. Although he still did not know why Lu Yi wanted to help him, he could be sure of one thing, and that was once Lu Yi won, he would be temporarily safe. Otherwise, if Lu Yi lost, wouldn't the myriad beast ancestor deal with him? A battle of primordial spirits. Both of them used all their strength, because both of them knew that they could not lose this battle. Time passed bit by bit, and in the blink of an eye, 3 minutes had passed. The aura dispersed, and Longao and the other three immediately retreated, their faces changed greatly. It was indeed the battle of the strongest under Tian Dao. Just the aura alone was not something that ordinary people could contend with. If it was an ordinary martial artist, they would have been obliterated by the aura. Chapter 1427. Boom. There was a loud noise. The Thousand Beast Ancestor and Lu Yi each took 3 steps back. From an outsider's point of view, the battle was a draw. Looking at Lu Yi in front of him, the Thousand Beast Ancestor's expression changed again and again. You can take Longao away, but I won't let this matter rest. Ancestor. Hearing that the ancestor wanted Lu Yi to take Longao away, Shi Chong and the other two were completely anxious. If Longao was alone, then so be it. But if Longao was taken away, what about Jianling? Could it be that the ancestor had given up on Jianling? The 3 of them knew very well that it was impossible. No matter what, they believed that the ancestor would not choose to give up on Jianling. After all, devouring Jianling would allow one to break through to the peak of martial arts. In that case, why would the ancestor give up on Longao and Jianling? After thinking about it, the 3 of them seemed to have thought of a result, which was that the ancestor was very likely to lose this battle. Waving his hand, the Thousand Beast Ancestor's face was very gloomy, and he said coldly, "Let's go." Even if the 3 of them were unwilling to give up, they could only helplessly follow the ancestor and leave the Thousand Beasts cliff. In a short while, the 4 of them had disappeared without a trace. Lu Ye's body was a little shaky and her face was a little pale. "Senior, are you okay?" Longao could almost be sure that Lu Yi had won this battle and the Thousand Beasts Ancestor had lost. As expected, Lu Yi was a little helpless and said emotionally, "The strength of the Thousand Beast Ancestor is indeed extraordinary. If it wasn't for the Enlightenment back then, it would have been difficult for me to defeat him." Hearing this, Longao was already sure that Lu Yi had won this battle. However, looking at the situation, even if Lu Yi won, it was a narrow victory. "Longao, you're very good." Until now, Longao was still a little confused. Lu Yi was the patriarch of the Phoenix clan and Aoshua's grandfather. According to the situation between them, the Phoenix clan and himself should be in an opposing relationship. But now, not only did Lu Yi not deal with him, but she also helped him. Longao knew very well that without Lu Yi's help this time, it would have been difficult for him to leave the Thousand Beasts sect. In any case, he had to thank Lu Yi. "Thank you, Senior." Lu Yi smiled and said, "Longao, come with me." Nodded. Since Lu Yi had helped him, Longao knew that Lu Yi would definitely not attack him. Without any hesitation, Longao left with Lu Yi. In the battle at the Wanshou sect, Longao, who was originally in a perilous situation, managed to escape successfully due to Lu Yi's appearance. Was Lu Yi of the beasts of the beasts of the was of the news of the beasts of the beasts of the beasts of view of the myriad beasts ancestor had lost to Lu Yi. Regardless of whether it was for the sake of face or something else, the myriad beast ancestor would not reveal this matter. In the main hall. "Old ancestor, now that Longao has been taken away by Lu Yi, will he hand over the Jianling?" The 3 of them looked very serious because if Longao really handed over the Jianling to Lu Yi, they would have no chance at all. They were very unwilling to miss the opportunity. So what if they were unwilling? Even the old ancestor was not a match for Lu Yi. The 3 of them found it hard to imagine that the Phoenix clan was the strongest in the world. Until now, the 3 of them did not dare to believe that the old ancestor, who was known as the strongest person under the heavenly Tao, had actually lost to Lu Yi. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would not have believed it even if they were beaten to death. Enlightenment is a secret technique of the Phoenix clan. Otherwise, Lu Yi's strength alone would not be enough to fight against me. How could the 3 of them not know what the old ancestor was talking about? Back then, the matter of Lu Yi being enlightened by the immemorial Phoenix was known by everyone in the Tianwu continent. The Phoenix clan, which had begun to decline, suddenly began to counterattack. They directly became the three supreme clans of the spiritual beasts along with the Qilin clan and the Dragon clan. But even so, it was believed that no one would have thought that Lu Ye's strength would be so strong that she could actually defeat Lu Yi. If this matter were to spread, it would definitely shake the world. Old ancestor, what should we do now? Longao will definitely not hand over the Jianling. The three of you will personally go. No matter what, you have to find Longao for me. Remember, do not act rashly. Wait for me to act. Yes, old ancestor. Hearing the old ancestor's decision, the three of them finally heaved a sigh of relief. They were really afraid that the old ancestor would choose to give up. If that was really the case, it would be almost impossible to continue devouring the origin energy in the future. On a mountain peak not too far away from the Wanshou sect, the entire mountain peak was 10,000 meters high. At a glance, it was as if it was sitting on top of the clouds. It was very spectacular. At this moment, at the peak of the mountain, Lu Yi and Longao stood facing the wind. The two of them did not speak. They just looked at the endless void in front of them. After an unknown period of time, Lu Yi suddenly said, Longao, I already know about the matter between you and Aoxue. If it was a few years ago, you would have definitely died. Even Aoxue would not be able to escape the fate of death. There was no surprise or worry. Longao was not a fool. He knew very well that if something had happened to Aoxue, Lu Yi would not say that, let alone help him. This also meant that Aoxue was definitely fine. As if she could guess what Longao was thinking, Lu Ye's face was full of admiration. She said, Aoxue is fine, and she is already pregnant with your child. Really? Hearing Lu Ye's words, Longao was simply overjoyed. At the same time, he was also very excited because he did not expect Aoxue to be pregnant. In other words, he, Longao, was going to be a father. This was great news. Before Lu Yi could say anything, Longao asked impatiently, Senior, where is Aoxue now? Can I see her? Longao, I just said that Aoxue's situation is not bad, but you can't see her now. Why is that? Longao was a little confused. Since Lu Yi had already helped him, it meant that the Phoenix clan would not oppose him and Aoxue. In that case, why would Lu Yi not let him see Aoxue? Aoxue's physique is very special, and even the child is problematic. We are now thinking of ways to help Aoxue. You must not be distracted. Once you see Aoxue, Aoxue will be distracted and there will be a lot of trouble. Longao, since I don't oppose you two, you will definitely be together in the future. Why are you in such a hurry? You have to know that it is the best choice for Aoxue to stay in the Phoenix clan. Special physique? There is also a problem with the child? What the hell happened? After hearing Lu Ye's words, Longao's heart skipped a beat. He was full of worry and did not know what happened to Aoxue. Chapter 1428. Senior, please take care of Aoxue. After thinking about it, Longao still thought that Lu Yi was right. In this case, it was best for Aoxue to stay in the Phoenix clan. Aoxue is my granddaughter. I know what to do. Thinking of something, Lu Yi continued. Go back and tell Ao Tian that if he wants to be with my daughter, he has to cultivate. At the very least, he has to reach the supreme divine Tao. He was delighted. Regarding the matter of Aoxue's parents, Longao knew it clearly. No one knew about their pain after 20 years. Now that they had a chance to be together, how could Longao not be happy? But when he heard Lu Ye's last sentence, it was like a basin of cold water was poured over him. The supreme divine path, apart from the peak of martial arts and the Nirvana realm, was already at the top of the martial arts pyramid. It was not easy to break through to the supreme divine path. Senior, it's a bit too difficult. Longao, I believe you know better than me how cruel reality is. Even the supreme divine path may not be able to do anything. Is my request too much? She did not continue. Longao knew the cruelty of reality better than anyone else. In this world where strength was respected, strength was the only way to live a better life. It could be said that, without strength, it was difficult to move an inch in this cruel world. Even your life was not in your own hands. This was reality. Senior, I will pass on your words to Uncle Ao Tian. Longao, you have now offended the Wanshou sect, the Martial Artists Alliance, and the Long family. Even if you are confident, I'm afraid it won't be good for you to fight 1 against 3. Longao knew the meaning of Lu Ye's words. I have no choice. Longao had always obeyed the law. If people did not offend him, he would not offend them. If people offended him, he would pay them back double. Lu Yi wanted to say something, but she did not say it in the end. The enmity between Longao and the 3 superpowers was already there. It was impossible for him to go back on his word. Even if the Phoenix clan was strong, it was impossible for them to fight 1 against 3. Lu Yi knew her own limits. For words, helplessness. Moreover, it was impossible for Lu Yi to offend the 3 super forces for Longao. Even if Lu Yi was willing to take the risk, would the Phoenix clan be willing to? Longao, if I'm not mistaken, you've already broken through to the God Emperor realm? Exactly. Longao didn't hide this fact at all. Sizzle, 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 the surrounding trees began to sway, making a rustling sound. Longao was very curious. After Lu Yi asked that question, she didn't say anything else. She just stood there quietly and looked into the endless void. The night was exceptionally quiet. Lu Yi didn't say anything. Longao didn't say anything either because he didn't know what to say. Unknowingly, the night was slipping away, and the sun was setting. Longao, the reason I'm here this time around is to take a look. Remember this. Before you have the strength, don't be rash. Ao Xue is still waiting for you. Longao was more or less grateful to Lu Yi in his heart. Without her, he wouldn't have been able to leave the Thousand Beasts sect so smoothly. If it were anyone else, why would they offend the old master of the Thousand Beasts sect for an outsider? Before Longao could say anything, Lu Ye's figure disappeared. Her speed was way too fast. Even with Longao's strength, he couldn't sense how Lu Yi did it. After Lu Yi left, Longao, there's a little trouble. What's wrong? Hearing Xilin's anxious voice, Longao's heart skipped a beat. Could something have happened again? Longao, according to my original guess, after Bai Ling swallowed the power of the heaven and earth spiritual vein, she should be able to recover half of her strength. When she enters the Sword Chi space, she will definitely wake up. Longao didn't say anything and just listened quietly. His intuition told him that there must be a change in the situation. The bad premonition was like a huge wave. Longao, I believe you should have already guessed that even if Bai Ling swallowed the power of the heaven and earth spiritual vein, it won't be of much help. His heart sank. What he was afraid of came true. Xiling, you mean that if Bai Ling wants to wake up, there's only one way, and that is to swallow the heaven and earth spiritual vein? That's right. Not only does Bai Ling need to swallow the heaven and earth spiritual vein, she also needs to swallow the core of the heaven and earth spiritual vein. Longao was very curious because he knew very well that Xiling wouldn't do that. Could there be something fishy about this? As if he could guess what Longao was thinking, Xiling said in a serious voice. Under normal circumstances, Bai Ling can easily swallow the power of the heaven and earth spiritual vein, but I believe you know my sister's situation. This time, in order to help you, my sister is injured, so even if she swallows the power of the heaven and earth spiritual vein, it won't be of any help. So that's how it is. Longao knew that he couldn't blame Xiling for this. After all, even Xiling had never encountered such a situation. The only problem now was that he had finally left the Wanshou sect. If he chose to go back now, it would be like a sheep in a tiger's mouth. It would be even more difficult to leave the Wanshou sect. Longao, my sister has already swallowed the power of the heaven and earth spiritual vein. I believe that she will be fine for a short period of time. According to my estimation, she will be fine for at least a year. It would be better for you to avoid this period of time and think of a way to enter the Wanshou sect in the future. Longao was well aware of Xiling's good intentions. Even if Bai Ling could wait for a year, could he also wait? Xiling, I will immediately return to the Wanshou sect. No matter what happens, I will help Bai Ling obtain the heaven and earth spiritual vein. For Bai Ling, not to mention a slim chance of survival, even if there was no chance of survival, Longao would not hesitate. Longao, listen to me. If you return to the Wanshou sect now, not only will you not be able to obtain the heaven and earth spiritual vein, it will also be very difficult for you to leave. I know this very well, but for Bai Ling, I must return to the Wanshou sect. I don't want any accidents to happen. Although according to what Xiling said, there was still an entire year's time, but no one knew what would happen within a year's time. Because of this, in order to prevent any accidents from happening, Longao had already decided that he had to settle this matter as soon as possible, so as to avoid unnecessary complications. Xiling didn't say anything because she knew Longao's character very well. The Wanshou ancestor, Shichong, and the other three would never have thought that Longao would return to the Wanshou sect. Otherwise, the four of them would not have been so relaxed. No matter who it was, no one would have thought that Longao would return to the Wanshou sect. In the Wanshou sect, Longao used teleportation, his figure constantly flickering as he smoothly entered the Wanshou sect. Chapter 1429. No one would have thought that after Longao had left, he would return to the Wanshou sect. The Wanshou sect had returned to normal. Even the seal on the Wanshou cliff had been lifted. The disciples of the Wanshou sect could enter and cultivate. The Wanshou ancestor was overseeing the Wanshou sect, while the three of them followed Longao. Once Li left, they would immediately attack Longao. And the result? Not to mention Longao, just Lu Ye's strength made it impossible for the three of them to follow her. Wanshou Cliff. The current Wanshou Cliff was very deserted. Even if there were people, they were cultivating alone in the black holes. Longao silently entered the Wanshou Cliff. Looking left and right, he immediately shot toward a black hole. Inside the black hole. Even now, Longao didn't know the exact location of the heaven-earth spirit vein. Even Xiling couldn't sense it. His expression was very ugly because Longao was very clear that the longer this dragged on, the more unfavorable it would be for him. He believed that the Wanshou ancestor and the other three would never have thought that he would return to the Wanshou sect. How could he determine the location of the heaven-earth spirit vein? Thinking back and forth, Longao couldn't think of a good idea for the time being. Inside the dragon seal space, Longao came to Bai Ling's side and gently stroked Bai Ling's hair. His face was filled with tenderness. Bai Ling, no matter what happens, I will help you obtain the heaven-earth spirit vein. After sitting quietly with Bai Ling for about 2 hours, Longao found Long Ming and Long Chang. He asked, "You've already entered the weak space. Tell me about it." Longao was very interested in the weak space. According to Xiling, the weak space was the space closest to the edge of the Tianwu continent. Once the weak space was damaged, the entire Tianwu continent would be destroyed. The reason was simple. The weak space was filled with taboo energy. In the entire Tianwu continent, other than the godly mathematician and the heavenly Tao, how many people could resist the taboo energy? Aside from Master Clairvoyant and the heavenly Tao, no one else could withstand the power of the taboo. Big brother, our luck is really good. After being sucked into the weak space, we were just stuck in the crack. Otherwise, we would have definitely been killed by the forbidden power. Longao already knew about this. Next, Long Ming and Long Chang explained the general situation of the weak space. After listening, Longao nodded in surprise. Longao had always believed that the martial heaven continent was boundless. There was no such thing as a boundary. However, after seeing the weak space, Longao realized that he had been looking at the sky from the bottom of a well. The martial heaven continent also had a limit. As for what was outside the martial heaven continent, he had no idea. Longao was almost certain that the weak space was not something he could touch. Even the godly mathematician and the heavenly Tao would not dare to touch it casually, let alone him. In the entire Martial Sky continent, there were probably only a few people who knew the secret of the weak space. Big brother, you still haven't confirmed the location of the heaven and earth spirit vein? Whether it was Long Chang or Long Ming, they naturally knew the situation of Bai Ling's sister. The two little fellows were also very worried about Bai Ling. They couldn't wait to lock onto the location of the heaven and earth spirit vein and obtain it to help sister Bai Ling wake up. He sighed deeply. Helplessly shaking his head, Longao said helplessly, "If my guess is correct, the heaven and earth spirit vein should be within the Myriad Beast Cliff. As for where it is, I am still unable to confirm it. Big brother, why don't you let me try?" "You?" Hearing Long Chang's words, Longao was very curious. Could it be that Long Chang had a way to determine the location of the heaven and earth spirit vein? Regardless of whether Long Chang could lock onto it or not, he had to try. "Big brother, I can try." "Okay." Longao and Long Chang left the dragon seal space. One man and one dragon appeared in the black hole at the same time. Longao said, "Remember, don't alert the enemy." Even if they couldn't sense the location of the heaven and earth spirit vein, they must not be discovered by the Myriad Beast sect. Otherwise, putting aside the danger, it would be even more difficult to continue to sense the existence of the heaven and earth spirit vein. Long Chang nodded. Of course, he knew the seriousness of the matter. "Big brother, don't worry. Watch me." Long Chang had successfully integrated with the dragon crown, and his cultivation had also successfully broken through to the supreme realm. His aura was very strong. The aura he released, integrated with the dragon crown, silently enveloped the entire Myriad Beast Cliff. Unless it was a Nirvana realm warrior, or an ultimate god or an emperor god, it was very difficult for anyone to sense the aura fluctuation of Long Quan. Looking at Long Chang, who was sensing the heaven and earth spirit vein, Longao was very anxious. He hoped that Long Chang could succeed. Time passed by bit. Myriad Beast Palace. "Ancestor, we lost him." Shirchong and the other two looked at the ancestor in front of them in fear. The three of them did not expect that with their strength, they could still lose him. It was simply unbelievable. The Myriad Beast ancestor was not angry because he had already guessed this result. With Lu Ye's strength, it would be strange if the three of them were to follow him. What is the relationship between Longao and Lu Ye? Why did Lu Ye help Longao? Until now, the Myriad Beast ancestor could not figure out why Lu Ye would help Longao. After all, after this matter, the Phoenix clan and the Myriad Beast sect would become enemies. For Longao, was it worth it? No matter how he thought about it, the Myriad Beast ancestor still could not figure it out. Listening to the ancestor muttering to himself, Shirchong asked gloomily, "Ancestor, what should we do now?" Find? Where could they find him? The three of them knew very well that if Longao deliberately hid, then in the Tianwu continent, it would be like looking for a needle in a sea of people. Looking at the gloomy faces of the three, the Myriad Beast ancestor snorted coldly. "Longao has already offended the Long family and the Martial Artists Alliance. According to what I know, the Long family is now attacking the Dragon Valley. As long as we watch from the sidelines, we can reap the benefits when the time comes. So that's how it is." Shirchong was still very worried and said, "Ancestor, if that's the case, what if the Long family and the Martial Artists Alliance are not willing to let us do it?" No matter what, the strength of the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family was there and could not be underestimated. Even if it was the Myriad Beast sect, it would be very troublesome to fight against the two of them alone. "Don't worry about this. The Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family do not know the secret of the Jianling. Even if we kill Longao, they will only appreciate it and not think too much about it. They will do as I say." The three of them looked at each other. Since the ancestor had already said so, the three of them could only agree. Chapter 1430. Time flew by. Seeing that Long Chan had been sensing the location of the spiritual vein, Longao became more and more anxious. Could Long Chan sense the location of the spiritual vein? After 2 hours. Big brother, I sensed it. Hearing Long Chan's words, Longao was overjoyed. Where is it? He could not wait. Longao did not expect Long Cha to be able to sense the location of the spiritual vein. Big brother, the spiritual vein is sealed by the myriad beast aura shield. With our strength, even if we can find the location of the spiritual vein, it will be difficult to break the myriad beast aura shield. Myriad beast aura shield? He was a little depressed. Longao was familiar with the power of the myriad beast aura shield. Previously in the myriad beast hall, Shi Chong had used the myriad beast aura shield to trap him. If not for the dragon seal, he would have died in the myriad beast hall. If that was the case, things would be very troublesome. However, things had already come to this point. Whether it was a mountain of knives or a sea of fire, Longao had already decided to go to the spiritual vein. Long Chan, let's go. Long Chan knew his big brother's character very well. Without any persuasion, Long Chan led Longao out of the black hole and prepared to go to the spiritual vein. According to Long Chan, the location of the heaven and earth spiritual vein was within the myriad beast cliff. If Long Chan had not sensed the location of the spiritual vein, it would not have been easy to find it. The entrance was located in one of the countless black holes. In the dark black hole. Big brother, the entrance is sealed by the myriad beast aura shield. Unless we break the myriad beast aura shield, we will not be able to enter. How could Longao not know Long Chan's words? Longao tried to touch the myriad beast aura shield. Without breaking it, he already knew that it would be difficult to break it with his strength alone. What should he do? Big brother, why don't you let Long Ming try? Long Ming? Although he didn't know if Long Ming could do it, Longao still didn't let go of the slightest opportunity. Just like before, he had never thought that Long Chan could really sense the location of the spirit veins. Summoning Long Ming from the dragon seal space, Longao went straight to the point and asked, Long Ming, is there any way to break the 10,000 beast aura barrier? The 10,000 beast chi shield, as its name implied, was a kind of chi shield formed by gathering the power of over 10,000 spirit beasts. The myriad beast aura shield was incomparably powerful. If it weren't for the 10,000 beast chi barrier's power, the 10,000 beast sect wouldn't have used it to seal the heaven and earth spirit veins. However, the heaven and earth spiritual vein was the most important treasure of the Wanshou sect. Big brother, let me try. Even Long Ming was not completely confident that he could break through the 10,000 beast aura shield. As Longao's cultivation broke through to the Supreme Realm, both Long Chan and Long Ming were close to breaking through to the Supreme Realm. They could use this opportunity to break through to the Supreme Realm in one fell swoop. Long Ming's physique was very special, as if he was born with the dark attribute. Long Ming gathered all the power in his body, gathered it all in one move, and hit the 10,000 beast aura shield fiercely. There was no sound. There was no movement at all. Did he fail? It seemed that Longao had already guessed that this would be the result, so he didn't feel the slightest bit surprised. In any case, Long Ming's strength had just broken through to the Supreme Realm, and he was about the same as him. If Long Ming could break through the 10,000 beast chi cover, then wouldn't he and Long Chang be able to do the same? Big brother, I just tested it. The 10,000 beast aura shield here is very strong. It's very difficult for me to break it with my strength alone. Long Ming, what do you mean? Big brother, I have a way to break through the 10,000 beast aura shield. Hearing this, Longao was overjoyed. As long as he could break through the 10,000 beast aura shield, he wouldn't hesitate to pay any price. Long Ming, what should we do? Carefully observing the 10,000 beast aura shield in front of him, Long Ming thought for a moment and said, Big brother, you and I should be able to break through the 10,000 beast aura shield if we work together. But if we do that, the 10,000 beast sect will definitely know. Somewhat dignified, Longao was very clear that the 10,000 Beast sect had set up the 10,000 Beast Aura shield without any backup plans. Once he broke through the 10,000 Beast Aura shield, the 10,000 Beast ancestor would be the first to know. At that time, not to mention obtaining the heaven and earth spiritual vein, whether he could leave the 10,000 Beast cliff alive would be unknown. We can't alert the enemy. There was only one goal, and that was to obtain the heaven and earth spiritual vein. Unless it was a last resort, they couldn't alert the enemy. Whether it was Long Ming or Longao, both of them were somewhat solemn. This was because they could not act rashly and alert the enemy, but they also had to break the 10,000 beasts aura barrier. It was really difficult to come up with a perfect solution. What should they do? Long Ming, is there any other way to break the 10,000 beast aura shield without alerting the enemy? After thinking for a while, Longao said helplessly, "It's very difficult. I believe Big Brother already knows that the 10,000 Beast Aura shield is set up to seal the heaven and earth spiritual vein. No matter who it is, as long as they touch the 10,000 Beast Aura shield, the 10,000 Beast Aura shield will be the first to know." Without waiting for Longao to continue, Long Ming continued, "Unless an expert at the peak of the martial Dao comes in person, otherwise, no one can break the 10,000 Beast Aura shield without alerting the enemy." They were somewhat helpless. They had already found the location of the heaven and earth spiritual vein, but they couldn't break the 10,000 Beast Aura shield. It was like a big man who had been hungry for 3 days and 3 nights looking at a pile of steamed buns in front of him, but couldn't eat them. For a moment, Long Ming and Longao fell into silence, because one man and one tiger didn't know what to do. The heaven and earth spiritual vein was close at hand. As long as they broke the 10,000 Beast Aura shield, they would be able to see the heaven and earth spiritual vein. At this point, Longao couldn't give up, nor could he give up. There was only one thing that Longao couldn't be sure of, and that was how long it would take for the 10,000 Beast ancestor and the others to arrive after he broke the 10,000 Beast Aura shield. If there was enough time to seize the heaven and earth spiritual vein, then even if they alerted the enemy, it wouldn't be a bad thing. But if they couldn't seize the heaven and earth spiritual vein and attracted the attention of the 10,000 Beast ancestor and the others, then it would be a tragedy. Break? Or not? For a moment, Longao really didn't know what to do, and it was hard to decide. "Big Brother, we can't go on like this. Why don't we take a risk? If we can seize the heaven and earth spiritual vein in the shortest time, then even if the 10,000 Beast ancestor and the others come, we don't have to worry. Even if we fail, will the 10,000 Beast ancestor guard the heaven and earth spiritual vein all the time?" How could Longao not know Long Chang's intention? Under such circumstances, it seemed that the only way was to take a risk. Chapter 1431. Let's take a risk. After thinking about it, Longao finally decided to give it a try. "Long Chang, Long Ming, you and I will work together to break the myriad beast aura shield. Remember, we must seize the heaven and earth spiritual vein in the shortest time possible." Long Chang and Long Ming nodded. The two of them certainly knew the seriousness of the matter. The longer they delayed, the more disadvantageous it would be for them. Just like that, Longao, Long Chang, and Long Ming stared at the aura shield in front of them. The aura of the 3 brothers surged wildly. The 3 brothers used all their strength in this attack. There could not be the slightest mistake. In the next second, the 3 brothers moved at the same time. The 3 of them worked together and struck the myriad beast aura shield with their strongest attack. As expected, just as Long Ming had guessed, the combined power of the 3 of them directly broke the 10,000 beast aura shield. Without the slightest hesitation, Long Chang and Long Ming disappeared from their original positions. Longao took a step forward and entered the aura shield. Just as the myriad beast aura shield was broken, on the other side of the myriad beast hall, the 4 of them were discussing what to do next. Shi Chong and the myriad beast ancestors' faces changed at the same time. "Ancestor, someone broke the myriad beast aura shield by force." He nodded. Could it be Longao? Even the myriad beast ancestor himself could not believe it. Longao was rescued by Lu Yi. Unless there was something wrong with his head, it was impossible for Longao to return to the myriad beast sect. If it was not Longao, then who could it be? Big brother, let's go quickly. Nothing must happen to the heaven and earth spiritual vein, because the spirit chi in the myriad beast mountain range was several times stronger than the outside world. Not only that, the heaven and earth spiritual vein was called the treasure of the myriad beast sect. Let's go. The four of them got up at the same time and rushed toward the myriad beast cliff. Longao, who had just broken through the 10,000 beast chi cover, had just stepped into the chi cover when his entire figure had already disappeared. In the next moment, Longao had already appeared inside a huge cave. Underground cave. In the middle of the cave, there was a huge stone platform. On top of it was a meter-long spiritual vein. Without a doubt, it was the so-called spiritual vein of heaven and earth. Until now, Longao was still curious. Since the heaven and earth spirit vein was so small, why didn't the Wansho sect take it away and leave it here? Spiritual veins of heaven and earth were treasures of heaven and earth. They were of great help to a martial artist's cultivation, regardless of anything else. After successfully entering the cave, the heaven and earth spirit vein was right in front of him. Of course, Longao would not let go of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Stretching out his right hand, he grabbed the heaven-earth spirit vein. According to Longao's estimation, as long as he gently grabbed, he believed that he could take away the heaven-earth spirit vein. But what was the result? The spiritual veins of heaven and earth did not move at all. Longao was shocked. He had never thought that the heaven and earth spirit vein would be so sturdy. Even with his strength, he could not take it away. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have believed it. Now, Longao finally knew why the Wansho ancestor and Shurchong did not take away the heaven-earth spirit vein. It turned out that the heaven-earth spirit vein was tightly sealed here. He had a feeling that even the Wansho ancestor and Shurchong might not be able to take it away. Under this sort of situation, Longao could be considered depressed to the extreme. If there was enough time, he could slowly think of a way. But now, if there were no accidents, the Wansho ancestor and Shurchong should have known that the Wansho Chi shield was broken. It would not take long for them to arrive here. Race against time. Even if Longao was racing against time, time did not wait for anyone. The Wansho ancestor and the other three had already appeared in the Wansho cliff. Entering the black hole, the four of them looked extremely gloomy when they saw the broken Wansho Chi shield. The four of them stepped into the Wansho Chi shield. In the next moment, the four of them appeared in the cave at the same time. There was no one in the cave. Seeing that the heaven-earth spirit vein was still there, the four of them let out a long sigh of relief. What was going on? Old ancestor, father, we found the heaven-earth spirit vein here. For countless years, no one has been able to touch it. Even if someone came in, it would be difficult to take it away. Shurpatian was very confident about this. When the Myriad Beast sect had discovered the heaven and earth spirit vein, even the Myriad Beast ancestor had been unable to take it away. Left with no other choice, the ancestor could only seal the heaven and earth spirit vein here and set up the Myriad Beast sect's headquarters. If even the old ancestor could not take the heaven-earth spirit vein, who in the world could take it away except for the oracle and the heavenly Tao? Old ancestor, something is not right. And you two go repair the Wansho Chi shield first. Shurchong and Shurfeng did not dare to say anything and immediately left to repair the damaged Wansho Chi shield. As for the 10,000 beast ancestor, he silently stood in the middle of the cave. He released his aura and began to sense the surroundings of the cave. Up until that moment, the 10,000 beast ancestor had a feeling that this matter was very likely related to Longao. Although this guess was a little hard to believe, he could not think of anyone other than Longao who could enter the cave and disappear. It was better to be safe than sorry. If it was really Longao, then wouldn't it mean that Longao was very likely in the cave? If that was the case, then once they left, Longao would continue to touch the heaven-earth spirit vein. Since the matter had already reached this point, the Thousand Beasts' old ancestor naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity. After a short while, Shi Chong and Shi Feng returned smoothly. Shi Chong said, "Old ancestor, we have already repaired the Thousand Beasts' chi cover. I have already discussed with my second brother, the Thousand Beasts' chi cover must have been broken by someone. As for Longao, he doesn't have the strength." Shi Chong and Shi Feng did not believe that the Wanshou Chi shield was broken by Longao. According to the Wanshou Chi shield they had set up, not to mention Longao's strength, even an ordinary Nirvana realm cultivator would not necessarily be able to break it. How could the Wanshou ancestor not know what Shi Chong and Shi Feng meant? Even the Wanshou ancestor did not believe that this was done by Longao. However, he could not gamble, nor did he dare to gamble. If it was really Longao and the heaven-earth spirit vein was taken away, the consequences would be unimaginable. If this was really done by Longao, then according to our previous estimation, Longao must have come to our Wanshou sect this time for the heaven-earth spirit vein. He will not give up. Old ancestor, the chances of Longao returning to the sect are too small. Before, Longao left the sect with great difficulty. Unless there is something wrong with his head, Longao will not return. Big brother is right. Old ancestor, no matter how arrogant Longao is, it is impossible for him to return to the sect. If there is no accident, the Wanshou Chi shield outside should have been broken by a Nirvana realm cultivator. After listening to the two's words, the Wanshou ancestor began to think quietly. Under normal circumstances, this was definitely not done by Longao. Chapter 1432. Was it really Longao? Even now, the myriad beast ancestor wasn't sure if it was Longao's doing. Ancestor, what should we do now? Staying here wasn't a good idea. The myriad beast ancestor was a little troubled. If they left now and something happened to the spirit vein, it would be too late for regrets. Shi Feng. Yes, ancestor. Shi Chong and Shi Patian seemed to have guessed something. Shi Feng, from now on you stay here. Remember, if it really is Longao, don't kill him. Inform me immediately. Shi Feng cursed in his heart. It was almost certain that this was definitely not Longao's doing. Since that was the case, he would be an idiot if he stayed here and waited for the rabbit to show itself. Even if Shi Feng was extremely unwilling and displeased, he knew very well that if he did not agree, the old ancestor would most likely turn against him. At that time, even if the old ancestor killed him, no one would stand up for him. In the myriad beast sect, the ancestor was the sky. No one dared to go against him. Shi Feng could only nod reluctantly and say, "Don't worry, ancestor. I will look after the spirit vein." With a Nirvana realm cultivator guarding here, the myriad beast ancestor wasn't too worried. Taking 10,000 steps back. Even if it was Longao's doing, with his strength alone, not to mention one Longao, even 10 Longaos or 100 Longaos wouldn't be a match for Shi Feng. The gap between a God King and a Nirvana realm cultivator was too big. It was an insurmountable gap. Let's go. The myriad beast's ancestor and the other two didn't stay in the cave. The three of them turned and left. In a short while, the three of them had disappeared without a trace. Shi Feng was the only one left in the cave. If Longao comes back, I'll kill myself here. He cursed fiercely. Until now, Shi Feng still didn't believe that Longao would dare to return to the myriad beast sect. As for the myriad beast's aura shield, he was 100% sure that it wasn't Longao's doing. In Shi Feng's opinion, the ancestor must be afraid of Longao for being so nervous. It felt like a dream. It was unbelievable that the strongest person under the heavenly Tao would be like this. Shi Feng looked at the spirit vein in front of him with greed. He knew that as long as he could devour the heaven and earth sect, his cultivation would definitely be able to break through to the Nirvana realm. It was just a thought. Even if he could, he wouldn't dare. Sitting down beside the stone platform, Shi Feng helplessly started cultivating. inside the dragon seal space. It's Nirvana realm. If that was the case, it would be difficult for him to go out. Not to mention, it was still unknown whether the heaven and earth spiritual vein could be taken away. Longao had already tried just now. With his strength alone, it was very difficult to move the heaven and earth spiritual vein. What should I do? In fact, in many people's opinion, Longao's rampage in the Wansho sect bode ill rather than well. After all, the Wansho sect's Wansho ancestor was too powerful. He was known as the strongest person under the heavenly Tao. Even Tong Zun, Long Tian and the others were not his match. In the Tianwu continent, everyone was talking about Longao and the Myriad Beast sect. Longao's fame was becoming more and more famous. On the other side, in the Nine Prefectures continent, Long Di Tian still did not give up on attacking the Dragon Valley. Instead, he increased the intensity of his attacks. The old ancestor had gone to the 10,000 Array sect and never returned. There was no news of him at all. This made Long Di Tian extremely depressed. No one had thought that Longao's attainments and formations would be so high. The formation he had set up was so powerful that even the ancestor couldn't break it. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, who would have believed that such a thing could happen? Patriarch, we can't go on like this. Everyone is laughing at us. Chapter 1433. A joke? Right now, the Long clan itself was the biggest joke. Ever since Longao's first provocation and the Long family failed to kill Longao, the Long family had become a joke. Especially when Longao caused trouble for the Long family and resisted the forbidden power. Coupled with the fact that they couldn't break the barrier this time, the Long family was still one of the 10 great families. Long Di Tian's face was gloomy. As the leader of the Long family, the interests of the family had to come first. Long family had become a joke, and Long Di Tian had to bear the main responsibility. Continue attacking? Long Heng wasn't surprised at all because things had already reached this stage. The Dragon Valley had to be destroyed. Otherwise, the Long family would become a joke again. As long as the Dragon Valley is not destroyed, we will not stop attacking. Wave after wave, the Long family's attacks never stopped. Wansho sect. In the underground cave. Longao didn't dare to act rashly. After all, Shifeng was guarding the heaven and earth spirit vein. If he acted rashly, the consequences would be unimaginable. If the heaven and earth spirit vein was easy to obtain, Longao would have a 90% chance of success even if he took the risk. No matter what, he had the dragon's seal in his hands. But the result? The heaven and earth spirit vein couldn't move at all. Longao was very depressed. He didn't know how to obtain the heaven and earth spirit vein. Longao, the heaven and earth spirit vein is a treasure of heaven and earth. Not to mention you, even a Nirvana realm martial artist wouldn't be able to touch it. Hearing Xiling's words, Longao was extremely depressed. Didn't that mean that he couldn't take the heaven and earth spirit vein? That meant that there was only one way, and that was to let Bai Ling devour the heaven and earth spirit vein in the cave. But was Shifeng willing to do that? He thought about it. In the end, Longao could only think of one way, and that was to split up. No, we can't do that. Hearing Longao's idea, Xiling's face changed, and he resolutely objected. Longao's decision to split his troops into two was actually very simple. In other words, Longao wanted to use him as bait to lure Shifeng away. That way, there would be no danger in the cave, and Bai Ling could safely devour the heaven and earth spirit vein. Xiling, there's no other way. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Longao would not take this risk. Splitting up and luring Shifeng away was a risky move. After all, once they left the cave, they would attract the Myriad Beast ancestor and the others. If they got surrounded and attacked, the consequences would be unimaginable. Not only that, Longao knew very well that even if he lured Shifeng out of the cave, he would not be able to enter the dragon seal space. The reason was very simple. Once he entered the dragon seal's space, he believed that Shifeng would immediately return to the cave. With Bai Ling's current state, could she withstand Shifeng's and the others' attacks? There was no doubt about it. It was a risky move. Even so, Longao was prepared to give it a try. Because other than this method, he really could not think of a better one. No matter what, Bai Ling's safety was the #1 priority. Xiling knew Longao's character too well. Once Longao decided on something, under normal circumstances, it was impossible to change his mind. Longao, be careful. Things had already reached this point, and Xiling had no other choice. She was also very clear about the relationship between her sister and Longao. They could sacrifice themselves for each other. Xiling, you and the 2 little guys stay here. Only you can help Bai Ling continue devouring the heaven and earth spirit vein. The current Bai Ling could already devour the heaven and earth spirit vein on her own. Even so, Longao was still worried about Bai Ling's safety. Taking a step back. If his plan to lure the wolf out of the cave failed, then Shifeng and the others would most likely return to the cave. At that time, Bai Ling, without anyone to take care of her, would be a piece of meat on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Xiling of course knew what Longao meant. After thinking for a while, she nodded and replied, "No problem. Big brother, Sister Xiling is enough to guard here. The 2 of us will go out and help you." Before Longao could speak, Xiling said, "Long Chang is right. The strength of 3 people is always greater. Longao, if something happens to you when your sister wakes up, what do you think will happen to her?" He looked at Bai Ling, who had been carried out, and then looked at Xiling and the 2 little guys. After thinking for a while, in the end, Longao nodded and agreed. In the cave, Shifeng sat quietly beside the heaven and earth spirit vein and cultivated. At his level of cultivation, relying on the heaven and earth spirit vein to cultivate was not very useful. If he wanted to break through from the Nirvana realm to the Nirvana rebirth realm, he had to rely on luck. He was only 1 step away. It was because of this 1 step that Shifeng had been stuck for decades. It would be a lie to say that he was not depressed. If I can devour this heaven and earth spirit vein, not to mention the Nirvana rebirth realm, even the peak of the Nirvana realm would not be a problem. Shifeng even wanted to forcefully devour it. Even if he was discovered, his cultivation would have already broken through. At that time, even if the old ancestor and the others were unhappy, what could they do? Kill him? That was not very likely. However, Shifeng did not want to take the risk. Who knew what the old ancestor would do? If the old ancestor attacked him before he could break through, he would not even have the chance to regret. How shameless! Who is it? If you have the ability, come out. Why are you sneaking around? Shifeng was startled when he heard the sudden voice. Thinking about how the 10,000 beast aura barrier was broken, Shifeng was sure that the person who broke the 10,000 beast aura barrier was inside the cave. He was simply courting death. Shifeng, have you forgotten about me so quickly? Longao? Shifeng was sure that the person who suddenly spoke was none other than Longao. At this moment, Shifeng was simply shocked to the extreme because he never thought that Longao would really return to the Wanshou sect. After all, according to the logic of a normal person, since they had already left, they would not appear. Could it be that Longao was really fearless? After this matter, Shifeng could also be sure that the reason why Longao was unwilling to leave again and again, even risking his life to enter this place, was because of the heaven and earth spirit vein. If that was the case, then everything would be easy to handle. Looking at the youth who suddenly appeared in front of him, Shifeng sneered and said, "Longao, I can't help but admire your courage. But don't worry, this time I want to see if there will be a second Lu Yi to help you." Lu Yi had already left, and even returned to the Phoenix clan. In Shifeng's opinion, Longao would definitely die if he returned to the Wanshou sect this time. If Longao could still escape, then the entire Wanshou sect, including him, should commit suicide. Chapter 1434. Courting Death? The calmer Longao appeared, the less confident Shifeng felt in his heart. Could it be that Longao was truly fearless? If it were anyone else, Shifeng would not even bother about them. But this Longao was different. To be able to disappear time and time again, and even get the help of Lu Yi. How many people in this world could do something like that? Ha! Ha! All of a sudden, Shifeng burst out laughing maniacally. His laughter was filled with contempt and mockery. Longao, you don't have to play tricks with me here. If you want to get the heaven and earth spirit vein, ask yourself this question. Can you do it? Shifeng still did not take Longao seriously. No matter what, Longao was just a puny god-king martial artist. No matter how fast his cultivation speed was, a god-king martial artist was still a god-king martial artist. In front of a nirvana martial artist like Shifeng, god-king martial artists were just trash. He ignored the mockery and contempt. He scoffed coldly. Shifeng, how about we make a bet? How about that? This again. Right now, Shifeng was most afraid of making bets. This was especially the case with Longao. That was because Longao's space god weapon was way too strong. Each time they made a bet, Longao would definitely win. Longao, you're already a dead man. Do you think that I'll still make a bet with you? I almost forgot. You don't own up to the bet. If that's the case, there's no need to continue. Looking at Shifeng, who was enraged to the max, Longao chuckled. Without giving Shifeng any chance to speak, Longao continued. I'm not going to play with you anymore. I'm going to leave first. You want to leave? Shifeng, it's not that I'm looking down on you. But you're not going to be able to keep me here. If anyone else were to say this, Shifeng would definitely burst out laughing. Only Longao. Not only did Shifeng not laugh, his face was even getting grimmer. That was because Longao had the help of his space god weapon and could leave at any time. Even the old master could not do anything about it, let alone Shifeng. The next moment, Longao did not enter the dragon seal space because he originally wanted to lure Shifeng away. If he entered the dragon seal space, wouldn't he have nothing to do? Longao used spatial teleportation to increase his speed to the extreme. Longao, it's not that easy for you to leave. Of course, Shifeng didn't know what Longao was thinking. In his opinion, as long as he could kill Longao, he might be able to gain some benefits from the patriarch. A short while later, Shifeng chased Longao out of the cave. The 10,000 Beast Aura Shield was very special. One had to break the 10,000 Beast Aura Shield to enter, but it was not necessary to leave. Moreover, the 10,000 Beast Aura Shield was undamaged. The two of them had just left. Xiling appeared with Bai Ling in his arms. Long Chang and Long Ming stood guard beside him. They did not dare to hesitate in the slightest, because Xiling and the two little fellows were very clear in their hearts that this opportunity was fought for by Longao. The longer they delayed, the more dangerous it would be for Longao. They had to race against time to buy more time for Longao. You two guard the exit. Yes, big sister Xiling. Long Chang and Long Ming didn't dare to be careless. They immediately went to the exit of the cave. The two little guys looked at each other and saw a trace of seriousness in each other's eyes. They couldn't make any mistakes. Bai Ling, big sister is very envious of your relationship. Sigh. After a deep sigh, Xiling didn't say any more nonsense. She immediately communicated with Bai Ling and the heaven and earth spirit vein. Then, Bai Ling began to madly devour the heaven and earth spirit vein. Her devouring speed soared to the extreme. Even so, it wasn't easy for Bai Ling to devour the entire heaven and earth spirit vein in a short period of time. If Bai Ling had woken up, the devouring speed would have increased by a notch. Unfortunately, Bai Ling was currently unconscious. The only reason why it could reach this speed was because it had devoured the power of the heaven and earth spirit vein. At this rate, it will take about 6 hours for little sister to devour the entire heaven and earth spirit vein. 6 hours was enough to change everything. Could Longao stop Shifeng and the others for 6 hours? It was a little helpless. Now that things had come to this, even Violet's spirit could not do anything, because even with her strength, she was not a match for Shifeng and the others. In other words, even if she went out, not only would she not be able to help Longao, but she would also become a burden to Longao. Outside the cave, inside the cliff of beasts. Longao, why aren't you running? Looking at Longao, who had stopped, Shifeng sneered. Shifeng, I remember our bet. Every time you see me, you have to kowtow and admit your mistake. I really want to see your character. What he was afraid of really happened. Shifeng hated it when others mentioned this. Longao, the old ancestor, and the others will be here in a few minutes. Today, I want to see how you can escape from under my nose. Longao cursed in his heart. He had full confidence that even if Shifeng was standing in front of him, he could still enter the Dragon Seal's space without any scruples. Shifeng wanting to find him was simply a fool's dream. However, Longao didn't do so. The reason was simple. Longao knew very well that once he chose to enter the Dragon Seal's space to find him, Shifeng and the others would definitely enter the cave. If that was the case, not only would Bai Ling be unable to devour the heaven and earth spiritual vein, her life would also be in danger. Because of this, no matter what happened, even if he knew that his life would be in danger if he continued to stay, Longao knew that he couldn't enter the Dragon Seal space. This was because he had to stall for time to buy time for Bai Ling to devour the heaven and earth spiritual vein. Shifeng walked towards Longao step by step. The aura of heaven and earth on his body had already ruthlessly pressed down. Longao also released his aura of heaven and earth. The two auras of heaven and earth fiercely collided. With a stride, Shifeng's entire body had already shot out. Shifeng wasn't a fool. He was very clear about Longao's strength. Just relying on the aura of heaven and earth to suppress Longao was very difficult to kill. Of course, Longao didn't dare to meet Shifeng head-on. After all, the difference in strength between them was too great. One was a divine king while the other was a nirvana realm. The difference between the two was like an insurmountable chasm. Using spatial teleportation, Longao's figure constantly flickered. He didn't meet Shifeng head-on, but instead used guerrilla warfare. This caused Shifeng to be very depressed. Longao, if you're a man, then have a fair fight with me. Why do you have to be so sneaky? Shameless. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen such a shameless person. Longao fiercely cursed in his heart. A fair fight? If it really was a fair fight, then the Wanshou sect wouldn't have fought 4 against 1. Longao couldn't be sure how long Bai Ling would need to devour the heaven and earth spiritual vein. Therefore, he had to keep delaying. He had to delay as long as he could for Bai Ling. He knew that this was his last chance. After this, he believed that the Wanshou sect would be prepared. Chapter 1435. One had to admit that spatial teleportation was very powerful. Longao couldn't fight against Shifeng with his own strength. However, with spatial teleportation, Longao was using guerrilla warfare, constantly moving around with Shifeng. Under such circumstances, Shifeng could be considered to be depressed to the extreme. He was a rebirth realm cultivator, and the second in command of the Myriad Beast sect, yet he was unable to even kill a God King realm cultivator now. If news of this were to spread, then where would he put his face? Kill. Longao must die. Cursing in his heart, Shifeng used all his strength and increased his speed by a level. It was not a good idea to continue like this. Longao knew very well that if this continued, he would be the one to suffer in the end. Dozens of minutes later, the Wanshou sect ancestor, who had received the news, had arrived. Not only that, the Wanshou sect disciples were standing around the Wanshou cliff. These disciples had been cultivating in the black hole. Ever since Longao was rescued by Lu Yi, the cliff of beasts had been restored to its original state. The disciples of the Thousand Beasts sect could enter the black hole to cultivate. If the Thousand Beasts sect patriarch knew that Longao would return to the Cliff of Beasts, he would definitely continue to seal off the Cliff of Beasts. Ancestor. He waved his hand. The Wansho sect ancestor already knew what had happened. Until now, the Wansho sect ancestor and the other two did not expect Longao to return to the sect. If they did not see it with their own eyes, they would not believe it. Did Longao lose his mind? Or was his head kicked by a donkey? It was impossible for a normal person to return. The Wansho sect ancestor said with admiration. Longao, I have to admire your courage. I know what you mean. Why don't you make a deal with me? Let's hear it. If it was any other time, Longao would definitely not talk nonsense. However, the situation was different now. He had to stall for time and buy time for Bai Ling to devour the heaven and earth spirit vein. Hand over the Jianling and the spatial artifact in your hand, and I will let you stay with the heaven and earth spirit vein for a year. How about it? The Wansho sect ancestor could not hand over the heaven and earth spirit vein. Even if the Wansho sect ancestor was willing to hand over the heaven and earth spirit vein, it was still unknown whether Longao could take it away. He was not surprised at all. Bai Ling's identity had already been exposed, and the myriad beast ancestor would not rest until he obtained the Jianling. If it were anything else, perhaps Longao would really hand it over. Only Bai Ling. Moreover, he did not have a spatial artifact. The spatial artifact that the myriad beast ancestor spoke of was the so-called spatial teleportation. How could he transfer the spatial teleportation? Longao, Jianling is of no use to you. Shi Chong was shameless to the extreme. Longao, sacrifice yourself for a useless Jianling. Ask yourself, is it worth it? Without absolute confidence, the myriad beast ancestor and the others would not casually make a move. Although they could interfere with the spatial fluctuations, it was impossible for Longao to use the spatial artifact to disappear. However, it was better to be safe than sorry. If Longao ran away, they would lose another opportunity. No problem, but I have a condition. Speak. As long as they could obtain the Jianling, no matter what it was, the myriad beast ancestor would agree to it. In front of a Nirvana realm martial artist, the temptation of source energy was the greatest. Furthermore, the source energy of the sky martial continent had already been completely controlled by the heavenly Tao. Even if it was him, wanting to obtain the source energy was somewhat impossible. In other words, the Jianling was his only chance to break through to the peak of the martial path. Do you think it's appropriate here? Looking around, the myriad beast's ancestor nodded. Come with me. He sighed in relief. If he continued to stay here, he would bring danger to Bai Ling. The best way was to take the myriad beast's ancestor away from the myriad beast's cliff. That way, Bai Ling could devour the heaven and earth spirit vein without any restraint. As long as he did not leave, Bai Ling would not be in any danger. They did not seal the myriad beast's cliff. After all, Longao had already found it. The 5 of them left. All the disciples of Wansho's sect were very curious as they watched the 5 people gradually disappear from their sight. They didn't know what had happened between Longao and their sect. It seemed like even the old ancestor was very afraid of Longao. Myriad Beasts Hall. Longao, state your condition. As long as it's not too excessive, I can agree to it. He sneered inside. Longao was almost certain that as long as he handed over Bai Ling, the Myriad Beast ancestor would even hand over the Myriad Beast sect. The Myriad Beast ancestor wouldn't have the slightest problem. It was still the same thing. He had to stall for time as much as possible. Myriad Beast ancestor, I trust that you already know Jianling's identity. Since that's the case, I won't waste words. I can't give you the Jianling alone. I also have a share. What do you think? Hearing this, whether it was the Myriad Beast's ancestor, Shirchong brothers, or Shirpatian, they all laughed. Longao, aren't you a little too ignorant? As everyone knows, only Nirvana realm martial artists can break through to the peak of martial arts by devouring the origin energy. With your strength, not to mention devouring the Jianling. Even if you directly devour the origin energy, you won't have the slightest chance of breaking through to the peak of martial arts. Not only that, if you forcefully devour the Jianling, you will even self-destruct. Longao did not have the slightest doubt about the myriad beast ancestor's words. It was the truth in itself. Without breaking through to the nirvana realm, one's cultivation could not forcefully devour the origin energy. Once forcefully devouring the origin energy, there was no doubt that, as the myriad beast ancestor said, one's body would immediately self-destruct. Because without breaking through to the nirvana realm, one's body could not withstand the origin energy at all. If the myriad beast's ancestor and the others knew that it was impossible for Longao to devour the Jianling, who knew what they would think? The myriad beast's ancestor and the others were also anxious. If they thought about it carefully, they would definitely be able to understand that in the battle of the Dragon Clan, Jianling did not hesitate to sacrifice himself to save Longao and forcefully resist the forbidden energy. Longao and Jianling did not have a strong relationship. Ask yourself, Jianling was not someone who had nothing better to do. Why would he help Longao and sacrifice himself? However, in this world, there were many people with a human face but a beast's heart. As the saying goes, one may know a person's face but not his heart. Even if Jianling helped Longao, Longao might not necessarily help Jianling. The myriad beast's ancestor and the others were full of confidence. In the face of life and death, everything was fleeting clouds. Would Longao disregard his own life to save Jianling? That was impossible. It was precisely because of this that the myriad beast ancestor and the others were certain that Longao would definitely not defend Jianling to the death before his life was in danger. Myriad beast's ancestor, since things have already reached this point, I will also speak the truth. The reason I want to protect Jianling is because I want to wait for my cultivation to break through to the nirvana realm before devouring Jianling. Chapter 1436. The myriad beast's ancestor believed Longao's words. No matter who it was impossible to resist such a temptation. There was some disdain and contempt. Longao, if I'm not wrong, your cultivation has just broken through to the supreme realm. There's still a long way to go before you reach the nirvana realm. How long will it take for you to break through to the nirvana realm from the supreme realm? He didn't give Longao any chance to speak. Even if Longao's talent and potential were strong, it wouldn't be easy for him to break through from the supreme realm to the nirvana realm. 10 years? 20 years? Or 100 years? He ignored the myriad beast ancestor's disdain. From the beginning to the end, Longao didn't have any intention of devouring Bai Ling. Myriad beast ancestor, I almost sacrificed myself to get the Jianling back then. Do you think I'll be willing to give it to you for free? Nonsense. There was only one purpose for what Longao was doing now, and that was to stall for time to buy time for Bai Ling to devour the heaven and earth spirit vein. Longao, I can't wait that long for you. If it was a year, 2 years, or even 10 years, the myriad beast ancestor would agree to it in order to get the Jianling. The problem now was, no one was sure how long Longao would take to break through from the supreme realm to the nirvana realm. As the myriad beast ancestor said, would Longao need 10 years to break through from the supreme realm to the nirvana realm? Or 20 years? Or 100 years? There were too many variables, and the myriad beast ancestor was definitely unwilling to wait. I have a way to get the best of both worlds. Speak. The myriad beast's ancestor had lost his patience. If it wasn't for the Jianling, he would have attacked long ago and wouldn't be wasting time with Longao here. If the myriad beast ancestor knew that Longao was doing this to stall for time, the myriad beast ancestor and the other 3 would be angered to death. Myriad beast ancestor, although I can't move the heaven and earth spirit vein, if the 4 of you help me devour the heaven and earth spirit vein, I'll be able to break through from the supreme realm to the nirvana realm in less than a year. Hearing this, the 4 people's expressions changed. The 4 of them were not fools. Of course, they knew what Longao meant. The heaven and earth spirit vein was a supreme treasure. The myriad beast sect was the heaven and earth spirit vein was the heaven and earth spirit vein, and their disciples. For so many years, even the myriad beast's ancestor, and the other beast's ancestor, and the other beast's ancestor. And the myriad beast's ancestor the spirit vein for heaven and beasts. Longao's meaning was very simple. He wanted to borrow their strength to forcefully devour the heaven and earth spirit veins and forcefully break through to the nirvana realm. Since then, Longao's cultivation had successfully broken through to the nirvana stage, so he could devour the source energy. In other words, he could also devour the sword's spirit. Shameless. The myriad beast's ancestor cursed in their hearts. Before the myriad beast's ancestor could speak, Longao smiled and continued, "If you don't want to, I won't force you." After a pause, Longao continued, "At most, I'll destroy the Jianling and fight to the death." Fight to the death? The myriad beast's ancestor stared at Longao. They didn't know why, but Longao's determination made them lose all confidence. If Longao really destroyed the Jianling and fought to the death, it wouldn't benefit anyone. The reason was simple. The myriad beast's ancestor only wanted the Jianling. How could he let Longao fight to the death? Agree? Or not? If they agreed with Longao, the myriad beast sect would not only lose the heaven and earth spirit vein, but also create another peak martial Dao expert. In that case, it would be a threat to the myriad beast sect and them. If they didn't agree with Longao, they wouldn't be able to get the Jianling. Passive. Very passive. The myriad beast's ancestor seemed to be very unhappy with this passive feeling, but there was nothing he could do. After all, Longao had the Jianling and they didn't. This was Longao's advantage. Otherwise, how could Longao be so confident and dare to bargain with him? "Longao, you're going too far." "Am I?" Longao shrugged helplessly. He looked like a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water. "Ancestor, the Jianling is mine. I risked my life to get it. I can't give it to you for free. Would you agree to the conditions you just mentioned?" Of course not. No one would agree to the conditions put forward by the myriad beast's ancestor. Because cultivating in the heaven and earth spirit vein for a year would only increase one's cultivation speed slightly. Compared to the peak martial Dao Jianling, it was not worth mentioning. In the end, the myriad beast ancestor wasn't completely sure that Longao would give him the Jianling. If Longao played a trick, Longao would devour the heaven and earth spirit vein and break through to the nirvana realm. If Longao didn't give him the Jianling and devoured the Jianling alone, the consequences would be unimaginable. Think about it. If Longao successfully broke through to the nirvana realm and devoured the Jianling and continued to break through to the peak martial Dao, then not to mention the entire myriad beast sect, even if the 10 sects joined forces, they wouldn't be a match for Longao. The myriad beast ancestor wasn't willing to take this risk and couldn't take it. "Longao, you're playing with fire." Hearing these words, Longao smiled and said helplessly, "Ancestor, you're not sincere at all. I've already made the biggest concession. I can't let you get the good stuff alone. You and I devour the Jianling at the same time and break through to the peak martial Dao at the same time. At that time, we'll split the world equally. Wouldn't that be great?" Shichong and the other two were shocked because Longao's meaning was very clear. Only the two of them could devour the Jianling, and the three of them had no chance at all. Once the ancestor agreed, the three of them would have no chance at all. "Ancestor, Longao is clearly playing with us. If we agree and he goes back on his word, we'll be in a passive position." Of course, the three of them weren't willing to give up this opportunity. Even if they obtained the Jianling, the three of them could only devour half of it together. Even if they only obtained 1/3 of the Jianling, they still had a chance to break through to the peak martial Dao. Otherwise, if they followed Longao's plan, the three of them would have no chance at all. How could the three of them agree? How could the myriad beast ancestor not know what the three of them were thinking? Between Longao and the three of them, the myriad beast ancestor would definitely choose them. No matter what, the three of them were his juniors and had the same blood flowing in their bodies. Longao was different. There were too many variables. Who knew if Longao would turn around and deal with them after breaking through to the peak martial Tao? Without full confidence, the myriad beast ancestor would definitely not agree. For a moment, the two sides were in a deadlock. Longao was very excited because this way, he could buy more time for Bai Ling to devour the spiritual vein of heaven and earth. Chapter 1437. In the Sword Sect. Ancestor, I've found out that Longao is still in the Wanshou sect? He was surprised. He felt helpless. Jian Tian didn't expect that Longao would take the risk to go to the Wanshou sect for a divine soul whose life was unknown. According to the news, Longao and the Wanshou sect were not on good terms. Otherwise, Longao and the Wanshou sect wouldn't have started a war. Longao's current situation could only be described with 4 words: besieged on all sides. The Martial Artists Alliance, the Long family, and the Wanshou sect. The 3 superforces were considered to be a force to be reckoned with. Any one of them was not to be trifled with. But what about Longao? Not only did he offend one of them, but he also offended the 3 superpowers. He was digging his own grave. Would a normal person do that? Longao is in big trouble. Ancestor, you and I both know what the Wanshou sect means. Longao offended the Wanshou sect this time and wanted to take the spiritual vein of heaven and earth. The Wanshou sect won't agree. Jian Tian nodded. Jian Tian thought for a while and said, It seems that Longao is trapped in the Wanshou sect. If it was the Martial Artists Alliance or the Long family, I could help. But the Wanshou sect. The Tianwu continent was a tripod. The Long family, the Alchemy Alliance, the Martial Artists Alliance, the Wanshou sect, the Heaven and Earth sect, the 5 Elements sect, the Wanzhan School, the Sword sect, the Purple Thunder sect, and the Xian Tian sect. As everyone knew, the Long family, the Martial Artists Alliance, and the Heaven and Earth sect were the most powerful, while the Wanshou sect was the most mysterious. Jian Tian and Murong Guina knew that the real overlord was the Wanshou sect. Even the Long family, the Martial Artists Alliance, and the Heaven and Earth sect couldn't compete with the Wanshou sect. Even Jian Tian was afraid of the Wanshou sect. Ancestor, I keep feeling that Longao isn't normal. What do you mean? Jian Tian was surprised to hear Murong Guina's words. After thinking for a moment, Murong Guina said, Ancestor, Master Clairvoyant came looking for me. Hearing that, Jian Tian's expression became odd. As the Martial Heaven continent's #1 expert, there was no need to say much about the God Diviner's power. Even in terms of the Tao of divination, he was unrivaled. What business does Master Clairvoyant have with you? His intuition was telling him that the marvelous mathematician was looking for Murong Guina. It must have something to do with Longao. So, what was the matter? It's about Longao. As expected. Before Jian Tian could say anything, Murong Guina continued. Back then, the God Diviner came to me and said that Longao's fate would affect the Martial Heaven continent. Is that true? I don't know if it's true or not, but Master Clairvoyant's Tao of divination has always been very accurate. That's why I've been helping Longao for so long no matter what happened. So that's how it was. Jian Tian finally understood why Murong Guina had been supporting Longao. It was because of Master Clairvoyant. Ancestor, how much of Master Clairvoyant's words can we believe? At this point, even Murong Guina was a little uncertain. No matter what, Longao had provoked the Martial Artists Alliance, the Long family, and the Wanshou sect at the same time. Any one of the 3 superpowers could easily kill Longao, not to mention that the 3 superpowers had joined hands. Could Longao fight against 3 superpowers at the same time? Not to mention Longao, even the Sword sect didn't dare to provoke 3 superpowers at the same time. 1 against 3 was simply courting death. 10 points. 10 points? Hearing the ancestor's words, Murong Guina was shocked. Longao is indeed a big variable. A small disciple of the Jiuzhou continent can cause such a big storm in the Tianwu continent. Longao is not simple. Ancestor, you may be right. Jian Tian waved his hand. How could Jian Tian not know what Murongguina wanted to say? He thought for a moment and said, "We'll do our best to help Longao. However, we can't openly provoke the Wanshou sect. We need to think about this in the long run." Murongguina seemed like he wanted to say something, but after looking at the ancestor's expression, he swallowed his words in the end. Outer Sea. Outside the Crystal Palace. After leaving the Crystal Palace, Tong Zun and Long Tian looked at each other and saw a trace of surprise and helplessness in each other's eyes. Brother Long, within 3 years, you and I must finish refining the origin energy and break through to the peak of the martial path. Otherwise, both of us will disappear from this world forever. Nodding, Long Tian said helplessly, "You and I have already started refining the origin energy. Even if we go into seclusion, it won't help. Brother Tong, why don't you and I work together to kill Longao? That way, we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Longao is too big a variable. If we don't kill him in time, no one can be sure that Longao won't become our greatest enemy in the future. You mean you agree?" "No problem." Long Tian and Tong Zun both started refining the origin energy. If nothing unexpected happened, they would finish refining the origin energy within 3 years and smoothly break through to the peak of the martial path. If they smoothly broke through, their future would be bright. If they suddenly failed, the consequences could be imagined. Long Tian and Tong Zun had already decided that if they failed to break through to the peak of the martial path in 3 years, they would kill Longao and solve this problem for their sect. Otherwise, they would bring trouble to their sect. Brother Tong, if that's the case, let's work together to deal with Longao. I'll go back and prepare now. Long Tian's face was solemn as he said helplessly, "I believe Brother Tong has already heard the news. Not long ago, we successfully found the location of the Dragon Valley. Unfortunately, even if I worked together with the primordial divine dragon, we couldn't break through the Dragon Valley or a shield. This has become a great humiliation for our Long family." Tong Zun obviously knew about the Long family attacking the Dragon Valley. He didn't believe it at first, but since Long Tian said so, it seemed like it was true. That was why Tong Zun was shocked. Even if Longao was a formation master, even if he was a god-level formation master, his formation aura shield couldn't withstand the attack of a Nirvana realm martial artist. Was there a hidden meaning in Long Tian's words? Tong Zun wasn't a fool. He asked, "Brother Long, I understand what you mean. How about this? I'll go with you now and mobilize all the experts in the Alliance to the Dragon Valley. With our combined strength, I don't believe that we can't break through the Dragon Valley or a shield." This was what Long Tian wanted. Tong Zun and the Martial Artists Alliance were powerful. Long Tian smiled and said, "Thank you for your help, Brother Tong. Let's go." Nodding, Long Tian and Tong Zun didn't hesitate and immediately left. Chapter 1438. In the Outer Ocean. Outside the Crystal Palace. Looking at the 2 disappearing figures, the divine mathematician had a strange expression on his face. If the Heavenly Tao knew that he had created 2 experts who had reached the pinnacle of the martial Tao, would the Heavenly Tao be willing to accept it? When he created Long Batian behind the Heavenly Tao's back, the Heavenly Tao was already unhappy, let alone now. "I don't have any more time. I hope that the 2 of you won't disappoint me." Looking at the endless water in front of him, the divine mathematician muttered to himself, "Longao, I hope that you can reach the pinnacle of the martial Tao within 3 years. Otherwise..." At this point, the divine mathematician did not continue. Tong Zun and Long Tian left the outer ocean and rushed towards the 9 continents. Their speed was extremely fast. 2 black dots flickered and disappeared into the horizon. 9 continents, outside the Dragon Valley. Long family had more than 10,000 people surrounding the Dragon Valley. It could be said that even a fly would not be able to escape, let alone a person. The 10,000 people were divided into 10 groups, and took turns to attack the Dragon Valley. Wave after wave, the attacks were endless. Even so, the Long family had been attacking for 10 days, but they were still unable to break the Dragon Valley Chi barrier. After this incident, the Long family had lost all their face and became the biggest joke in the Sky Martial continent. If Longao did not die, the Dragon Valley would not be destroyed. The Long family's joke would never disappear. Old ancestor, you're finally back. Seeing the two people who had suddenly appeared, Long Ditian and the rest were extremely surprised. The two of them were none other than Tong Zun and Long Tian, who had rushed back from the Crystal Palace. They were also the strongest warriors in the Sky Martial continent, and had already reached the Nirvana Rebirth realm. Ditian, how is it? Old ancestor, we took turns to attack the Dragon Valley Chi barrier, but we were still unable to break it. Long Tian nodded and was not surprised at all. Long Tian was very clear that even he could not break the Dragon Valley Chi barrier, let alone Long Ditian and the rest. If Long Ditian could break the Dragon Valley Chi barrier, wouldn't that mean that his strength was inferior to Long Ditian and the rest? Brother Tong, what do you think? Tong Zun did not attack the Dragon Valley. If Long Tian could not break the Dragon Valley Chi barrier, then even he would not be able to break the Dragon Valley Chi barrier. Brother Long, what do you think? According to my guess, Longao must have set up a formation in the Dragon Valley. He shook his head. I don't think so. Why do you say that? Hearing Tong Zun's words, Long Tian was very curious. This was because almost everyone was certain that Longao had set up an air barrier formation in the Dragon Valley. However, Tong Zun must have his reasons for saying so. Could there be something fishy about it? Brother Long, how is Longao's attainment in formations? According to the information I received, Longao's attainments in formations are not bad. He has only reached the Emperor level, not even the God level. Array Masters were ranked from lowest to highest: 1st grade Array Master, 2nd grade Array Master, 3rd grade Array Master, 4th grade Array Master, 5th grade Array Master, 6th grade Array Master, 7th grade Array Master, 8th grade Array Master, and 9th grade Array Master. Above the 9th grade Array Master was the King grade Array Master, the Emperor grade Array Master, the Sovereign grade Array Master, the Emperor level Array Master, and the most powerful God level Array Master. Even if we take a step back, even if Longao's formation level has broken through to the Divine Realm, the Chi shield he set up will not be able to withstand the combined forces of you, me, and the primordial Divine Dragon. Unless Myriad Formation Ancestor personally takes action, what do you think? How could Long Tian not know what Tong Zun meant? If that was the case, then that was indeed the case. Brother Tong, what do you think? Long Tian thought about it. Looking at the Dragon Valley in front of him, Tong Zun said gravely, under normal circumstances, with Brother Long's status, the Wanjian school would definitely agree to your request. Long Tian did not speak. Long Tian had never imagined that he would be rejected by the Wanjian school when he personally went to the Wanjian school. There was no room for negotiation. How could he not be enraged? Anger aside, there was nothing he could do. After all, the Wanjian school's strength was there for all to see. Even if the Long family and the Dragon clan joined forces, they would not dare to casually provoke the Wanjian school. In any case, the Wanjian school's strength was there for all to see. Brother Long, according to my guess, this matter should have something to do with the Wanjian school. Brother Tong, please speak more clearly. If I'm not mistaken, Longao and the Dragon sect alone would not be able to set up such a powerful Chi barrier. It seems that the Wanjian school helped, or even the Myriad Formation forefather himself. Otherwise, I really can't figure it out. Long Tian pondered. Tong Zun's words made sense. Now that he thought about it carefully, if the Wanjian school hadn't helped, would the Longao have been able to do it alone? In addition, the Wanjian school did not help them this time. This made Long Tian even more certain that the Wanjan school had something to do with this matter. We have no evidence. Even if the Wanjan school did it, we can't do anything. Brother Tong, let's see if we can break the Qi barrier together with the primordial divine dragon. At this point, whether or not the Wanjan school had something to do with the Wanjan school, they had no way of finding trouble with the Wanjan school. Tong Zhu nodded. He also wanted to kill Longao, so of course, he would not refuse. In front of the Dragon Valley, Long Tian, Tong Zun, and the primordial divine dragon were the strongest martial artists at the time. They all stared at the Dragon Valley in front of them. In the next second, the dragon and the primordial divine dragon attacked at the same time. They attacked with all their might. The terrifying attack was like lightning, striking the Dragon Valley. Tens of thousands of people were watching. In everyone's eyes, the combined power of the dragon and the primordial divine dragon was unstoppable unless the ungodly mathematician and the heavenly Tao came personally. Under such circumstances, the Qi barrier of the Dragon Valley would definitely be broken. But what was the result? The Dragon Valley did not move at all. The combined attack of the dragon and the primordial divine dragon was like a stone sinking into the sea. The result was obvious. Even with the combined power of the dragon and the primordial divine dragon, they could not break the Qi barrier of the Dragon Valley. Was this for real? Looking at the undamaged Dragon Valley, everyone was dumbfounded. They swallowed their saliva, and some of them even rubbed their eyes hard. They could not believe what they were seeing. Everyone knew how terrifying the attack was. Even without testing it personally, they still could not break the Qi barrier of the Dragon Valley. If they did not see it with their own eyes, they would not believe it. Brother Long, this is big trouble. Even without Tong Zun's reminder, how could Long Tian not know? He sighed deeply. Something like this had never happened before. He said helplessly, Brother Tong, what do you think we should do? At this point, if we still can't break the Qi barrier of the Dragon Valley, I'm afraid. Chapter 1439. Long Tian couldn't bring himself to say it. Long family was utterly humiliated. Tong Zun sighed helplessly. No one would have thought that things would come to this. What should they do? Brother Long, it seems like it's going to be difficult for us to break the Dragon Valley barrier. Long Tian nodded. Unless Wanjan's school helps us. Brother Tong, as you said, this might have something to do with Wanjan's school. Therefore, Wanjan's school won't help us. Suddenly, the surroundings fell silent. No one continued to speak. Everyone looked at the Dragon Valley in front of them. Even Tong Zun, Long Tian, and the primordial divine dragon couldn't break through the Dragon Valley Qi shield. In this world, other than the Oracle and the Heavenly Tao, who else could break through the Dragon Valley Qi shield? At this moment, Long Hang, who had been silent all this while, walked over. Old ancestor, I have an idea. Let's hear it. Long Hang seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. Something like this had never happened in all these years. Old ancestor, no matter what Longao does, the Dragon Valley barrier isn't something that you and I can break. Apart from the myriad formation ancestor, only the marvelous mathematician and Tian Dao can break the Dragon Valley barrier. Nonsense. Upon hearing Long Hang's words, both Tong Zun and Long Tian felt extremely depressed. Who else could be so influential as to ask the marvelous mathematician and Tian Dao for help? Long Hang didn't dare to say a word, as if he could guess what the two were thinking. No matter how unhappy he was, he didn't dare to say anything. Old ancestor, although the marvelous mathematician and Tian Dao can't descend, as long as we have the forbidden energy, I believe we can break the Dragon Valley barrier. Tong Zun and Long Tian weren't idiots. They understood what Long Hang meant as soon as Long Hang started. The forbidden energy. The Dragon Clan had the forbidden energy. Brother Long, Long Hang is right. As long as we can draw the forbidden energy of the Dragon Clan here, breaking the Dragon Valley barrier will be a piece of cake. The forbidden energy was the strongest energy in the world. It was also a destructive energy. Tong Zun and Long Tian were almost certain that as long as they had taboo energy, they would be able to break through the Dragon Valley air shield. Long Tian didn't say anything, but his expression became more and more serious. Under such circumstances, Long Heng's method was the best way to deal with the situation. "Brother Long, what do you think?" Tong Zun was a little anxious. Their joint effort had failed to break through the Dragon Valley Qi barrier. Not only had Long Tian and the Long family been humiliated, but he had also lost all his face. Only by destroying the Dragon Valley would they be able to regain some of their dignity. His expression changed again. Longao said helplessly, "Long Heng, you're oversimplifying things. Forefather." He waved his hand. Long Tian stopped Long Heng from continuing and said, "Back then, the God Diviner helped the Dragon Clan set up the taboo power in order to protect the Dragon Clan from being destroyed. If we could use the taboo power as we pleased, do you think we would still be standing?" Tong Zun and Long Heng's expressions changed when they heard this. That was indeed the case. Long family members could mobilize the power of the taboo. Apart from the oracle and the heavenly axiom, who else could resist the power of the taboo? Di Tian, come here. Long Di Tian did not say anything from the beginning to the end. As the leader of the Long family, he had been provoked by Long Ao time and time again. However, he could not kill Long Ao. He was responsible for this. Forefather. As for what Long Di Tian was thinking, Long Tian knew very well. Di Tian, this is not your fault. You don't have to blame yourself. Although Long Di Tian said this, he was still depressed. If he had known this would happen, he would have killed Long Ao directly. He believed that he would not have caused so much trouble and caused so much trouble. Di Tian, what do you think? After thinking for a while, Long Di Tian said seriously, Senior Tong is right. Without the help of the Wanjian school, it will be difficult for us to break through the Dragon Valley Qi barrier. Continue. The Great Elder has already said that the only way now is to use the forbidden power of the Dragon Clan. Old Ancestor, things have already come to this point. If we don't have a way to destroy the Dragon Valley, it will have a great impact on the Dragon Clan and even the Martial Art Alliance. Both Tong Zun and Long Tian knew this very well. We can't mobilize the power of the taboo. However, Forefather, from what I know, the Martial Artists Alliance obtained an extremely powerful super divine weapon 10,000 years ago. If we work together with this super divine weapon, I believe that we can break through the Dragon Valley Qi barrier. Brother Tong, look. Of course, Tong Zun was not willing to take out this super divine weapon. This was because everyone knew that this super divine weapon was the treasure of the Martial Artists Alliance. After so many years, the Martial Artists Alliance had never used it. However, since things had come to this point, if they did not destroy the Dragon Valley, it would greatly affect the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family. Nodding, Tong Zun said, I will go back and get it now. 3 days later, we will attack with all our might. Everyone was staring intently at the Dragon Valley in front of them. 3 days later, the Dragon Valley's energy barrier would be forced to open. The Wanshou sect. In the main hall, Long Ao and the Wanshou sect forefather were in a stalemate. Neither of them was willing to back down. As for Shi Chong and the other two, they did not dare to say a word. Under such circumstances, only one person could make the decision, and that was the forefather, the Wanshou sect forefather. Time passed by slowly. After an unknown period of time, the myriad beast's ancestor suddenly said, Long Ao, I can't agree to your request. I believe you should know what the spiritual vein of heaven and earth represents. If it were you, would you agree? No matter who it was, they would definitely not agree. Long Ao knew very well that no matter who it was, they would not agree, especially the Wanshou sect forefather. No matter what, the Wanshou sect's strength was obvious. Calculating the time, for hours had passed. Long Ao did not know if Bai Ling had successfully devoured the spiritual vein of heaven and earth. However, under such circumstances, the longer they delayed, the more advantageous it would be for Bai Ling delaying time to buy more time for Bai Ling to devour the spiritual vein of heaven and earth. Forefather, I don't want to say anything else. I just want to ask you one thing. Jianling, who is at the peak of martial arts, I want to ask you, what can compare to him? Apart from origin energy, there was nothing else that could compare to a sword spirit that had reached the pinnacle of martial arts. How could the myriad beast ancestor and the others not know this? However, the myriad beast ancestor and the others were absolutely unwilling to sacrifice the spiritual vein of heaven and earth. Longao, if you insist on not giving in, I have an idea that will benefit both you and me. How about it? Longao was very surprised. He did not know what the Wanshou sect forefather was up to. Chapter 1440. Let's hear it. No matter what the myriad beast ancestor said, Longao would never agree. Longao only had one motive for doing this, and that was to buy time for Bai Ling to devour the heaven and earth spirit vein. Longao, it's not impossible for you to devour the heaven and earth spirit vein. Ancestor. Hearing the ancestor's words, Shirchong and the other two were shocked. Was the ancestor really going to give the heaven and earth spirit vein to Longao? He waved his hand. Stopping the three of them from continuing, the myriad beast ancestor said indifferently, Longao, as long as you hand over the Jianling now, we'll seal it together. After you devour the heaven and earth spirit vein and break through to the Nirvana realm, we can devour the Jianling together. What do you think? Shameless. Longao finally witnessed the shamelessness of the myriad beast's ancestor. Longao was not a fool. He knew very well what the myriad beast's ancestor meant. It was nothing more than a trap for him. If they sealed the Jianling together, who knew if he would be able to devour the Jianling by then? He sneered in his heart. Ancestor, do you take me for a fool? Longao, I've already given in. Don't push your luck. Clenching his fists tightly, the myriad beast ancestor was clearly enraged at this moment. He was like an erupting volcano that could erupt at any moment. Logic told him that he had to endure. Before he got the Jianling, he had to endure. Otherwise, if Longao chose to fight to the death, it wouldn't benefit him at all. In other words, the myriad beast ancestor didn't care about Longao's life at all. The only thing he cared about was the so-called Jianling. My concession is that you help me devour the heaven and earth spirit vein. After I break through to the Nirvana realm, we'll devour the Jianling together. Other than that, I won't agree to anything else. Longao sat firmly on the chair, not taking the four of them seriously. The more Longao acted like this, the more uncertain the myriad beast ancestor and the others felt. No matter what, the trump card was in Longao's hands. The hall fell into silence once more. Holy sense transmission. Ancestor, we can't go on like this. It seems that the Longao has us in his grasp. If this continues, the Longao will only get worse. How could the myriad beast's ancestor not know what Shirchong meant? Even if he knew, what could he do? Did he really have to kill Longao? They did not care about Longao's life or death. The only person the myriad beast ancestor cared about was Jianling, who was at the peak of the martial path. It was because of Jianling that the myriad beast ancestor endured time and time again. Shirchong, do you have any good ideas? Ancestor, Longao is too unpredictable. If we help Longao devour the heaven-earth spirit vein and allow his cultivation base to break through to the peak of the martial path, once Longao goes back on his word and devours the Jianling on his own, the consequences will be unimaginable. Shirchang's words were like a knife stabbing into the myriad beast ancestor's heart. Ancestor, why don't we kill Longao and then soul search him? At that time, we'll be able to easily obtain the Jianling. Soul search. This was the most sinister move in the world. Everyone on the martial heaven continent had a tacit understanding that no matter who it was, no one was allowed to use soul search. No matter who it was, no matter who it was. Even if someone wanted to use Soul Search, they could only do it in secret. That was because if news of Soul Search spread, not only would their reputation be ruined, but they would also become the target of scorn. Even the myriad beast ancestor did not dare to casually use Soul Search. But in this situation, even if he used Soul Search, how many people would know? The myriad beast ancestor was silent. Shirchong did not continue. Shirchong was very clear that the ancestor was definitely thinking about it. As for whether the ancestor would accept his method, that would depend on the ancestor. The myriad beast ancestor was very clear that if he did not give in, Soul Search would be the only way. Moreover, just as Shirchong had said, Longao was too unpredictable. If he helped Longao devour the heaven-earth spirit vein, Longao's cultivation base would smoothly break through to the Nirvana realm. Then once he devoured the Jianling on his own, what would he do? It was completely conceivable. Once Longao devoured the Jianling and broke through to the peak of the martial path, the first person he would deal with would definitely be him. At that time, not only him, but everyone in the Myriad Beast sect would be eliminated by Longao. If that really happened, the consequences would be unimaginable. After thinking about it, in the end, the Myriad Beast ancestor decided to use Shirchang's method to kill Longao and Soul Search. All of a sudden, the Myriad Beast ancestor smiled. However, before the Myriad Beast ancestor could speak, Longao suddenly said, "Ancestor, are you going to kill me first and then Soul Search me?" Hearing Longao's words, not only the Myriad Beast ancestor, but even Shirchong was shocked. The two of them really could not figure out how Longao knew. After all, they were communicating with their spiritual senses. Could Longao hear them? No matter how powerful Longao was, it was impossible for him to hear their spiritual senses. The reason why Longao knew was completely based on speculation. Without full confidence, the Myriad Beast ancestor would not agree to his request, and the Myriad Beast ancestor was unwilling to give in. Other than that, there was only one way, which was the so-called Soul Search. A Soul Search would definitely yield the Jianling. Unless the Myriad Beast ancestor and Shirchong were crazy, they would definitely choose this method. Longao was a little amused. He had guessed correctly. Without the slightest fear, Longao said indifferently, "Ancestor, let me give you a piece of advice. You'd better not play tricks with me. I've already said that I can destroy the Jianling at any time. Instead of letting you take advantage, I'd rather fight to the death. When the time comes, I'll take the Jianling into the path of reincarnation. If I'm lucky, I might be able to devour the Jianling in my next life and break through to the peak of martial arts. What do you think?" The Myriad Beast ancestor did not speak, but his face grew darker. This was because the Myriad Beast ancestor never thought that Longao would be able to guess his and Shirchang's thoughts. The more Longao acted like this, the more unsure Shirchong and the Myriad Beast's ancestor felt. If his attack failed, then the prepared Longao would choose to fight to the death and destroy the Jianling. Wouldn't he have lost the chance to break through to the peak of martial arts? It was still the same words. He did not care about Longao's life or death, but nothing could happen to the Jianling. As such, the Myriad Beast ancestor was a little troubled. If it were anyone else, the Myriad Beast ancestor was confident that he would be able to kill them with a single strike. Only Longao, if this matter were to spread, no one would believe it. The mighty Myriad Beast ancestor, the number one person under the heavenly Tao, did not have the slightest confidence that he would be able to kill a God King cultivator. P.S. All 8 chapters have been delivered today. Longao will rest for a while and continue to write. Tomorrow, I will continue to write. I hope everyone will vote for Longao. Longao thanks. Chapter 1441. Now that his plan had been seen through, the Thousand Beast ancestor did not dare to act rashly. Longao had slowly guessed it, but he was still so calm. Could it be that Longao had something to rely on? If it was anyone else, the thousand-beast ancestor would not be so afraid. Only Longao. Ancestor, why don't we take a risk? If we miss, it will give Longao a chance to defend himself. At that time, it will be difficult for us to get the Jianling. How could Shirchong not know about the ancestor's scruples? Old ancestor, Longao's variables are too big, and he is extremely cunning. I have a feeling that Longao seems to be stalling for time. Stalling for time? The thousand-beast ancestor was very curious. He did not know why Longao was stalling for time. Could it be that the thousand-beast ancestor still thought that Lu Yu would continue to come to save him? Shirchong, what do you mean? Ancestor, why don't you let second brother go to the heaven and earth spirit vein? The thousand-beast ancestor knew Shirchong's character well. Could it be that Longao was deliberately stalling for time? Nothing must happen to the heaven and earth spirit vein. Otherwise, Longao would have nothing to worry about and would definitely leave the thousand-beast sect when the time came. If Longao deliberately hid, it would be like finding a needle in the sea to find Longao in the vast sea of people. Shirchong nodded. With the ancestor's permission, Shirchong spoke to Shifeng with his spiritual sense and told him about his worries. Me again? Shifeng cursed fiercely in his heart. The bad thing just had to be me. However, since the ancestor and big brother had already said so, even if Shifeng was unwilling in his heart, he could only obediently leave. Seeing Shifeng disappear, Ao Long was shocked. His intuition told him that there was a 95% chance that Shifeng had gone to the cave where the heaven and earth spirit vein was located. If that was the case, then this matter would be very troublesome. Because until now, he was not sure whether Bai Ling had finished devouring the heaven and earth spirit vein. If not, wouldn't Shifeng kill Bai Ling this time? He couldn't move an inch. Longao knew very well that if he left, he would definitely attract the attention of the myriad beasts patriarch. When that happened, things would become even more troublesome. What should he do? He had to think of a solution as soon as possible. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. In the end, Longao summoned his reincarnation avatar and left the hall at an unbelievable angle. Even the myriad beast ancestor and Shirchong did not notice that his reincarnation avatar had left the hall. Shifeng left the hall and rushed towards the myriad beast cliff at his fastest speed. Shifeng wasn't sure how long Longao could last. If Longao really handed over the Jianling and he wasn't around, wouldn't he be at a disadvantage? The next moment. Longao? Shifeng was surprised to see the youth blocking his path. How did Longao get out? Shifeng was very surprised. If Longao were to leave the hall, there was no doubt that the old ancestor and big brother would not agree to it. Just what was going on? No matter how he thought about it, he could not figure it out. Shifeng, where are you going? It's none of your business. Longao, just do your job. The one in charge of the myriad beast sect now is not me, but the old ancestor. It's useless to talk to me, understand? Shifeng did not know why Longao was blocking his path. From the beginning to the end, Shifeng had never thought that Longao would let Bai Ling devour the heaven and earth spirit vein in the cave. After all, this kind of thing was a little unbelievable. Shifeng, do you want to devour the Jianling and break through to the peak of martial arts? Even Shifeng could not tell whether the Longao in front of him was the real Longao or a fake. So what if I want to? So what if I don't want to? Shifeng definitely wanted to devour the Jianling. Among the martial artists, who would not want to devour the origin energy to break through to the peak of martial arts? Only a fool would not want to. Longao smiled. Shifeng, the myriad beast's old ancestor, did not admit it at all, and I do not trust him. So what? It's very simple. I hope to cooperate with you. You and I will devour the Jianling together. At that time, we will both break through to the peak of martial arts and divide the world equally. You will also be like a carp leaping over the dragon gate. How about it? So it was for this. If it was anything else, Shifeng would not even consider it. After all, The enmity between the Myriad Beast sect and the Longao had reached a point where it was either you die or I die. If he protected the Longao, wouldn't that be betraying the Myriad Beast sect? Even if Shifeng had 10,000 guts, he would not dare to betray the Myriad Beast sect. Except for this. The temptation of the Jianling was too great. Shifeng was very clear that once he devoured the Jianling, he would be able to refine the origin energy and break through to the peak of martial arts. Once he broke through to the peak of martial arts, he would be the strongest martial artist in the Tianwu continent. Even the heavenly Tao would not dare to casually provoke him. Agree? Or not? Shifeng was not a fool. If he agreed to Longao's request and devoured the Jianling, it would be tantamount to betraying the Myriad Beast sect. If there was even the slightest mistake, he would die a horrible death. If he did not devour the Jianling, he would only be the second in command of the Myriad Beast sect. As long as the ancestor and big brother were not dead, he would never be able to rise up. As long as he took the risk, he could become the strongest martial artist in the future. The reincarnation doppelganger did not have its own consciousness. It was completely controlled by the Longao. Even if Shifeng was beaten to death, he would never have thought that the Longao standing in front of him was not the real Longao. It was just a doppelganger. Shifeng did not immediately reply, and the Longao did not urge him either. This was the result that the Longao wanted. It was impossible for the Longao to help Shifeng devour the Bailing. He only had one goal in mind, and that was to stall for time in hopes that Bailing could finish devouring the heaven and earth spirit vein as soon as possible. The longer he delayed, the more advantageous it would be for Bailing. The Longao could not wait for Shifeng to continue thinking. Great Hall of Myriad Beasts, seeing the Longao remain silent, the Myriad Beast ancestor and Shifeng fell into deep thought. They did not dare to take the risk. If the Longao decided to fight to the death, wouldn't they lose the Jianling? The world was vast, but the Jianling was the most important. Dad, the Longao has us in his grasp. Shirpatian was very depressed as he looked at the youth sitting calmly on the chair. He had never placed the Longao in his eyes. He had never imagined that the Longao would grow to such an extent in just a few short years. If he had known, he would have killed the Longao back then. Today's events would not have happened. It was too late for regrets. Shirpatian was very clear that the Longao's strength was trash. Not to mention the ancestor and his father, even he could casually kill the Longao. Unfortunately, the Jianling was the trump card in the Longao's hand. Shirpatian could not act rashly. Chapter 1442. Not to mention Shirpatian, even Shirchong was extremely depressed. The dignified Wanshou sect was unable to deal with Longao. It was simply a great humiliation. Patian, don't act rashly. Ancestor is determined to get Jianling. Determined to get. He cursed in his heart. It was because Ancestor was determined to get Jianling that he couldn't do anything and lost face. Longao sat in front of him arrogantly, but he couldn't do anything. If Ancestor wasn't determined to get Jianling, how could he endure it? He clenched his fists. His face was cold. Even if he was unhappy, Shirpatian kept telling himself that he had to endure it. Once he ruined Ancestor's plan, he would be in big trouble. For the sake of the sword spirit, the old Ancestor might really kill him. Dad, where do you think Longao will hide Jianling? There's no doubt that Longao will hide Jianling in a space artifact. The reason why Longao could survive so many times was because of the space artifact in his hand. Otherwise, Longao would have died many times. That was also the reason. Shirchang's heart was filled with greed. He couldn't wait to get Longao's space artifact. Shirchong was very confident that if he could get this incredible space artifact, even Ancestor wouldn't be able to do anything to him. At that time, even if he couldn't become the most powerful person under the heavenly Tao, he would be able to do whatever he wanted. Apart from the sword spirit, The thing that Shurchong wanted the most was the spatial artifact in Longao's hands. Dad, if the three of us attack together, what are the chances of successfully killing Longao? Shurpatian was about to lose control of himself. Shurchong thought for a moment and said helplessly through his spiritual sense, I don't know. Even Shurchong wasn't confident that he could kill Jianling in one strike. Shurchong knew very well that even the old ancestor did not have the confidence to succeed in one strike, let alone himself. Longao was different from the others. Even if he had interfered with the spatial fluctuations, it was still unknown whether he would be able to hit Longao in one hit. The main reason why Shurchong and the Wansho ancestor didn't dare act rashly was because if they couldn't land a fatal blow, they believed that Longao would be able to destroy Jianling in just a few seconds. The world was vast, but Jianling was the greatest. Father! Enough! Shurchong was equally annoyed. Looking at Longao's arrogant and indifferent face, Shurchong felt a deep pain in his balls that he had nowhere to vent. At the other side. Longao, forgive me for being powerless. Did Shurfeng really refuse? The reincarnation doppelganger, which was actually a consciousness controlled by Longao, said, Shurfeng, I'll give you one last chance. If you don't agree, I'll have to go to your big brother. Everyone knew that Shurchong and Shurfeng were evenly matched, and neither of them was willing to submit to the other. Shurfeng had always wanted to replace Shurchong and become the trusted leader of the Wansho sect. Longao, I have a question. Answer me first and I'll reconsider. Go ahead. Why didn't you choose the old ancestor, but me? The Wansho ancestor and Shurchong are too shameless and won't give in. They only want to devour Jianling and reach the peak of martial arts. If that's the case, wouldn't I have risked my life to get Jianling in vain? Shurfeng didn't say anything. The more Longao acted like this, the more he believed in Longao's words. Among the four of us, I believe that you'll agree to my request. After all, devouring Jianling at the same time is very beneficial to both of us. I can't think of any reason for you to refuse me. An opportunity. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Shurfeng knew very well that once he refused, he would lose this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and Longao would find his big brother. At that time, he would have no chance to replace his big brother. The temptation of reaching the peak of martial arts was too great. Shurfeng couldn't resist it at all. Longao, with your talent and potential, once you devour the heaven and earth spirit vein, I'm confident that you'll be able to reach the Nirvana realm within 3 years. The biggest problem was, how would Longao leave? How would Longao devour the heaven and earth spirit vein? Shurfeng knew very well that devouring the heaven and earth spirit vein wasn't something that could be done overnight. If the old ancestor or his big brother found out, he would be betraying the Wansho sect. If that happened, he believed that the old ancestor and his big brother wouldn't let him go. Taking a step back. If Longao's cultivation had already reached the Nirvana realm, why would he wait until now? There was no doubt that if Longao's cultivation had really reached the peak of martial arts, then Longao would definitely devour the Jianling and not give them the slightest chance. They were in a dilemma. They couldn't advance or retreat. Longao, you're right. I don't have such big ambitions. Whether you can reach the peak of martial arts or not, I don't care at all. I only care about whether I can reach the peak of martial arts or not. Shurfeng's words had already made it clear that he had agreed to the proposal. Longao, you don't believe me, and I don't believe you either. If you want to cooperate with me, there's no problem, but to prevent us from playing tricks, there's only one way. You and I have to make a blood oath. I believe that in less than 100 years, both of us can reach the peak of martial arts. There's no problem with making a blood oath. Shurfeng, I want to ask, how are you going to help me? It's very simple. Since things had already come to this point, Shurfeng didn't hide anything. I'll find a way for you to hide first. Remember, don't show yourself without my permission. After this period, I'll arrange for you to enter the forbidden area and devour the heaven and earth spirit vein. With your strength, I don't know how long you'll need to devour the heaven and earth spirit vein. But I can wait. When you reach the Nirvana realm, you and I will devour the Jianling at the same time. What do you think? Shifeng had to admit that Shifeng was more powerful than Shifeng. Shifeng knew when to yield, but Shifeng couldn't. In Shifeng's opinion, as long as he could devour the Jianling and reach the peak of martial arts, no matter how long it would take, he could wait. Even if it was 10 years, 20 years, or even 30 years. For the peak of martial arts, waiting a few more decades was nothing. Shifeng, you admit it. You and I will make a blood oath now. The blood oath was the most terrifying oath in the world. Once it was made, no matter who it was, even if it was heaven, they wouldn't dare to violate it in the slightest. It was precisely because of this that Shifeng was relieved, because he was very clear that once Longao made the blood oath, then this matter was considered settled. Chapter 1443. They had reached an agreement. Longao had succeeded in stalling for time, and Shifeng had succeeded in getting what he wanted. It could be said that it was the best of both worlds. But was the result really like that? The blood oath was the most powerful oath in the world. No matter who it was, they could not violate the blood oath. Otherwise, they would die without a burial place. If the blood oath was really made by Longao, then Longao would definitely not dare to violate the blood oath. In the end, he could only devour Bai Ling. But would Longao do that? There was no doubt that Longao would not devour Bai Ling even if he was beaten to death. There was only one reason why Longao dared to make the blood oath. The person who made the blood oath was not Longao, but the so-called reincarnation doppelganger. However, the reincarnation doppelganger did not have the slightest consciousness. Even if he violated the blood oath in the future, he would not suffer any punishment. If Shifeng knew about this, what would happen to Shifeng? Shifeng had been tricked by Longao. At this moment, Shifeng was extremely excited because in 10 years, he could devour Jianling and break through to the peak of martial arts. From then on, he would be the only one in the world. Shifeng, where are you going now? Continue stalling for time. Although the reincarnation doppelganger had made the blood oath, Longao still did not dare to be careless. If Shifeng saw through it and forced him to go to the cave, the consequences would be unimaginable. To be honest, I'm going to the forbidden area now to see if you are stalling for time. Before Longao could speak, Shifeng continued. You don't have to go now. You have made the blood oath. I believe that even if you devour the heaven and earth spirit vein, you will devour Jianling with me. I choose to believe you. Not going? Hearing Shifeng's words, Longao, who was far away in the hall, finally breathed a sigh of relief. Shifeng, since you and I have both made the blood oath and come to an agreement, we will both return to the hall to avoid suspicion from Wanshou ancestor and your brother. What do you think? Okay, you go back first. I will come later. Of course, it was impossible for the two of them to return at the same time. Otherwise, anyone would be able to guess what had happened. All right. The reincarnation avatar did not linger and turned to leave. When the figure disappeared completely, the reincarnation doppelganger was summoned back into Longao's dantian. From the beginning to the end, Shifeng did not see any flaws. From now on, the Hotian martial continent belongs to me, Shifeng, alone. Even now, Shifeng was still daydreaming. After waiting for roughly 10 minutes, Shifeng stood up and returned to the main hall. Even if the myriad beast ancestor and the others were beaten to death, they would never have guessed the agreement between the reincarnation doppelganger and Shifeng. Shifeng's actions were a complete betrayal of the sect. Shifeng successfully returned. Longao and Shifeng did not exchange any glances. No one could have imagined that the two of them had secretly reached an agreement. Second brother, how is it? Big brother, there's nothing strange. Hearing this, Shifeng heaved a sigh of relief. As long as the heaven and earth spirit vein was still there, Longao did not hold all the trump cards. In this case, they still had a chance to bargain. Longao, this is your last chance. Hand over the Jianling and I will leave 1/5 for you. When your cultivation reaches the Nirvana realm, you can devour 1/5 of the Jianling. I will also swear a blood oath. There was no other way. In the end, the myriad beast ancestor would rather lose 1/5 of the Jianling to get the Jianling first. Only with the Jianling in hand could he truly be at ease. The myriad beast ancestor had already thought of the distribution of the Jianling. 1/5 would be given to Longao, 4/5 would be given to Shichong and his 2 companions, and 3/5 would be given to him. As long as he could extract the origin power from 3/5 of the sword spirit, it would be more than enough. Before Longao could speak, the myriad beast ancestor continued. Longao, as long as you agree, not only will you get one of the 5 Jianling, but the grudge between us will also be written off. How about it? The myriad beast ancestor seemed to be very generous, but he was no different from a bandit. No matter what, the Jianling was Longao's, but he only gave 1/5 of it. Longao did not care, because no matter how much he was given, he would not hand over Bai Ling. Calculating the time, Longao realized that it had been about 6 hours since he left the cave. He did not know if Bai Ling had already devoured the heaven and earth spirit vein. If it was an ordinary person, they might not be able to finish devouring it even in a few years, let alone a few hours. However, Bai Ling's situation was different. Although Xiling did not say it clearly, Longao knew very well that Bai Ling's speed of devouring the heaven and earth spirit vein would definitely increase exponentially. Xiling was also not sure how long it would take for Bai Ling to devour the heaven and earth spirit vein. However, according to Xiling's calculations, Bai Ling would need at least 6 hours to devour the heaven and earth spirit vein. In order to give Bai Ling more time to devour the heaven and earth spirit vein, Longao knew very well that he had to continue stalling. Ancestor, forgive me for not agreeing. If you insist, I'll still say it. Either the fish dies or the net splits. Again, either the fish dies or the net splits. Chapter 1444. Longao's answer made the few people a little helpless. Could it be that Longao was really that confident? The Thousand Beasts Grandmaster and the others already knew about the Dragon Valley. They would be lying if they said they were not shocked. The Long family and the Martial Artists Alliance had joined forces, but they still could not break the Dragon Valley Aura Shield. There must be something fishy going on. Coupled with Longao's attitude, the 4 were even more certain that the Dragon Valley was not simple. Longao was right. Once the Thousand Beasts clan could break the Dragon Valley Aura Shield, their bargaining chip would increase. In front of his family, Longao would not get a single cent of the Jianling, let alone 1/5 of it. The prerequisite was that they had to break the Dragon Valley Aura Shield. Longao, if that's the case, why don't we make a bet? Sure. Without asking or guessing, Longao already knew what the Thousand Beasts Grandmaster wanted to bet with him. If there were no surprises, the Thousand Beasts Grandmaster would bet with his family. He sneered in his heart. Longao had full confidence in the Sword Realm Chi Shield of the Dragon Valley. According to Violet Spirit, the power of the Sword Realm was even greater than the Taboo power. In that case, unless the Clairvoyant Master and the Heavenly Way attacked the Dragon Valley personally, no one would be able to break the Chi Shield of the Dragon Valley. Not even the Wensho ancestor could do so. Longao was relieved that the Long family and the Martial Artists Alliance could not break the Dragon Valley Aura Shield even after joining forces. The more Longao acted like this, the more unsure the 4 were. Longao was so fearless. Did he have something he could rely on? They were not sure, but they did not want to let go of any opportunity. Longao, I'll go to the Dragon Valley now. If I can break the Dragon Valley Aura Shield, you have to hand over the Jianling without any conditions. What do you think? No problem. What if you lose? I'll let you go, and we'll call it even. Longao smiled and nodded in agreement. Longao, don't worry. Even if I can break through the Dragon Valley's energy shield, as long as you hand over the Jianling, I won't touch anyone in the Dragon Valley, not even the Martial Artists Alliance, or the Long family. Thank you? Longao naturally did not believe that the Myriad Beast ancestor would be so kind. In the end, the Myriad Beast ancestor still wanted Bai Ling. 3 days. The Myriad Beast ancestor stood up, looked at the 3 people in front of him, and said, The 3 of you, keep a close eye on Longao. Don't let him leave for 3 days. I'll be back in 3 days. Of course, the 3 of them knew where their ancestor would go. The 3 of them nodded at the same time. They were very clear about the seriousness of the matter. Once Longao left within 3 days, they would be in big trouble. Don't worry, forefather. Turning to look at Longao, the Myriad Beast ancestor smiled and said, Longao, you will definitely lose this bet. Is that so? He was still not worried in the slightest. No matter what, the Sword Realm Chi Shield was powerful. The Myriad Beast ancestor alone could not break through the Sword Realm Chi Shield. After the Myriad Beast ancestor left, there were only 4 people left in the hall: Longao, Shichong, Shifeng, and Shirpatian. The 3 of them only had one mission, and that was to keep a close eye on Longao. They could not let Longao leave for 3 days. Otherwise, when the forefather returned to the sect, they would be in big trouble. The 3 of them did not know that Longao had no intention of leaving the hall from the beginning to the end. The reason was simple. The reason why Longao had appeared this time and followed the Myriad Beast ancestor into the hall was to stall for time and give Bai Ling more time to devour the heaven and earth spirit vein. The bet this time was completely to help him. This way, Bai Ling would have 3 days to devour the heaven and earth spirit vein. In these 3 days, no one would go to the cave. Jiuzhou continent. Outside the Dragon Valley, Tong Zun had arrived with thousands of disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance. He had also brought the treasure of the Martial Artists Alliance, the so-called Skull Sword. The Skull Sword was a peerless divine sword that had merged with the souls of countless skeletons. Tong Zun had not used the Skull Sword for so many years because it was too powerful. In order to deal with the Dragon Valley, Tong Zun did not hesitate to bring the Skull Sword. He wanted to destroy the Dragon Valley and save face for himself and the Martial Artists Alliance. Brother Tong, 10,000 years ago, you used the Skull Sword to kill 2 Nirvana-reborn martial artists. Others may not know about this, but I know it clearly. As for the Skeleton Sword, even Long Tian wanted it very much. The power of the Skull Sword was needless to say. Both Tong Zun and Long Tian were confident that the Skull Sword could break through the Dragon Valley Chi Shield. Brother Long, I carefully sensed the Dragon Valley Chi Shield just now. I'm afraid that my Skull Sword alone cannot break through the Chi Shield. It can't be. Long Tian was surprised. He did not expect Tong Zun to not have the confidence to break through the Dragon Valley Chi Shield even with the Skull Sword. If that was the case, he could not figure out what kind of Chi Shield Longao had set up in the Dragon Valley. Even if the Myriad Formation ancestor was here, his Chi Shield would not be so powerful. Brother Long, this time, we must succeed. Other than my Skull Sword, I hope that the Primordial Divine Dragon, the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon, and all the Nirvana martial artists will work together. If we still can't break through the Dragon Valley Chi Shield, we can only choose to give up. Long Tian nodded. How could he not know what Tong Zun meant? Just as Tong Zun had said, if they still could not break through the Dragon Valley Chi Shield, they could not think of a better way than to give up. After a rough calculation, the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family had about 20 Nirvana martial artists. With such strength, they could easily destroy any place, let alone break through the Dragon Valley Chi Shield. If that's the case, let's begin. Long Tian could not wait any longer. They had spent too much time here. If they continued to delay, it would not do any good to the Martial Artists Alliance or the Long family. Tong Zun and Long Tian gave their orders. All the Nirvana martial artists, including the primordial divine dragon, the nine heavens divine dragon, and even Tong Zun's good friend, Sky Wolf, gathered outside the Dragon Valley. The power of their combined strength was shocking. Both of them knew that if they still could not break through the Dragon Valley Chi shield, the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family would be completely humiliated. Their reputation would fall to the bottom. In other words, in this battle, they could only win and not lose. Just as everyone was about to attack, a voice suddenly came from the sky. Long Tian and Tong Zun looked at each other and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. They didn't know why the myriad beast's old ancestors suddenly appeared at this time. Chapter 1445. The black dot grew bigger and bigger. In the blink of an eye, the Thousand Beasts ancestor appeared in front of everyone. Everyone, including Tong Zun and Long Tian, were surprised to see the Thousand Beasts ancestor. They did not know why the Thousand Beasts ancestor appeared in the Dragon Valley. "Brother Shi, why are you here?" The Thousand Beasts ancestor was known as the most powerful person under the heavenly Tao. Even Tong Zun and Long Tian feared the myriad beast's ancestor. Was the Thousand Beasts ancestor here to help them? Tong Zun and Long Tian already knew about the battle at the Thousand Beasts sect. The Longao had caused a ruckus at the Thousand Beasts sect. There was no doubt that the feud between the Longao and the Thousand Beasts sect had reached a point where one of them had to die. "Brother Tong, Brother Long, is the Dragon Valley Aura shield still unable to be broken?" The two heaved a sigh of relief when they heard the Thousand Beasts ancestor's words. The two of them did not hide anything and told the Thousand Beasts ancestor about the situation. The Thousand Beasts ancestor's face turned solemn after listening to them. He did not expect the Dragon Valley Aura shield to be so powerful that it required the cooperation of the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family's Nirvana Realm martial artists. It was still unknown if they could break the Dragon Valley Aura shield. "Count me in." The two of them were overjoyed when they heard that. Next, all the Nirvana Realm martial artists, including the Thousand Beast ancestor, Tong Zun, and Long Tian, attacked with all their might. In everyone's opinion, such power was more than enough to break through the Dragon Clan's aura barrier. But the result? All the Nirvana Realm martial artists attacked the Dragon Valley Aura shield together, but it was like a stone sinking into the sea. This time, everyone was dumbfounded. Everyone looked at each other and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. They seemed to be in disbelief because everyone knew how powerful the joint attack was. The Thousand Beasts ancestor was the most depressed. The bet between the Thousand Beasts ancestor and the Longao only had 3 days. If they could not break the Dragon Valley Aura shield, they would lose the bet. The Thousand Beast ancestor guessed that he could break the Dragon Valley Aura shield by himself. But in the end. However, the Myriad Beast ancestor did not expect that even if everyone joined forces, they would not be able to break through the Dragon Valley Aura barrier, let alone him. What did this mean? "Brother Long, Brother Tong, what do you think?" Of course, the Myriad Beast ancestor was unwilling to lose the bet. Reputation was small, but Jianling was big. If he lost Jianling because of the bet, he would regret it to death. "Brother Shi, if I'm not mistaken, Longao's Chi shield should be a combination of the power of heaven and earth." The Myriad Beast's old ancestor nodded in agreement. Because other than this, he couldn't think of a better reason. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it even if he was beaten to death. The combined strength of more than 20 Nirvana Realm cultivators, including himself, was still unable to break through the Dragon Valley Aura barrier. "Brother Shi, what do you think we should do?" According to Tong Zun and Long Tian's plan, if they still couldn't break through the Dragon Valley Aura barrier, they would choose to give up. The two of them knew very well that if the combined strength of so many experts still couldn't break through the Dragon Valley Aura barrier, who else could do it unless the clairvoyant master and Tian Dao descended personally? The Myriad Beast's ancestor was also helpless. The Martial Artists Alliance, the Long family, and the Myriad Beast ancestor had joined forces to attack the Dragon Valley but failed to break through the Dragon Valley Aura barrier. The news spread across the Tianwu continent. Everyone who received the news turned pale with fright. Was it true? Many people found it hard to believe, but the truth was right in front of them. After this incident, the Dragon Valley's status in the Jiuzhou continent soared again. In the eyes of the Jiuzhou continent, they only recognized Longao and the Dragon sect. They didn't care about the 10 cardinal forces. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. In the main hall of the Myriad Beast sect, Shichong, if I remember correctly, it was already the time of the bed yesterday, but the ancestor still hasn't returned. Does this mean that the ancestor has already lost, and is too ashamed to return, and I've won? Hearing this, Shichong and Shiposhin's expressions turned even colder. They had already received news about the Dragon Valley. Shichong and Shirpatian hadn't expected that the ancestor wouldn't be able to break through the Dragon Valley Aura barrier even after joining forces with the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family. If there was no accident, then it was just as Longao had said. Was the ancestor too ashamed to return? If that was the case, then Longao had won the bet. Not saying anything? You won't go back on your words, right? Shifeng was furious, but because he had reached an agreement with Longao, he didn't flip out. In his opinion, as long as he could devour the Jianling barrier and reach the peak of the martial path, everything would be worth it. Longao, so what if you won the bet? We can let go of the Jianling barrier, and we won't ask about the grudge between you and the ancestor, but shouldn't we settle the grudge between you and us? Shameless. Longao knew what Shichong and Shirpatian meant. If there was no accident, the Myriad Beast ancestor should have already returned to the Myriad Beast sect, but he refused to come out because he had lost the bet. According to what they had said before, as long as he lost the bet, not only could he leave, but the grudge between them would also be written off. But would the Myriad Beast ancestor and Shichong be willing to accept this? Letting him go was insignificant, but they couldn't let go of the Jianling barrier. If they couldn't get the Jianling barrier, how could they leave? Shameless. Longao laughed mockingly and said contemptuously, "A loss is a loss, even if you regret it. I won't say anything. What makes me look down on you is that you didn't dare to show your face even though you lost. Myriad Beast ancestor, your reputation is not as good as your face." Shichong and Shiposhin's faces became gloomier and gloomier, but they couldn't say anything because they did regret it, and they couldn't blame Longao. If this matter spread out, the reputation of the Myriad Beast sect would be ruined. However, this matter wouldn't spread out. As long as Longao died, the three of them wouldn't spread the news. Your skin is thicker than a wall. Since that's the case, I won't say anything more. I think we should put aside the grudge between us. Why? Shichong and Shirpatian had already interfered with the spatial fluctuations in the surroundings. They were very confident that Longao would be able to leave with the help of a spatial divine tool. Not only that, Shichong had also activated the Myriad Beast G barrier, directly enveloping Longao. With this double insurance, Shichong wasn't afraid that Longao would leave. If Longao really left, how would he explain it to the ancestor? P.S. I'll send you 5 chapters first. Little 9, eat some food and see if you can continue to write. If you can, continue to update. If you can't, go to sleep and update tomorrow. If you want to update, it will be around 2 o'clock. Chapter 1446. Shifeng, is the agreement between us still valid? Shifeng was shocked. As soon as Longao opened his mouth, Shifeng already knew what Longao wanted to say. Even if Shifeng was beaten to death, he would never have thought that Longao would choose to betray him at this time. What agreement? Shichong was a little anxious. He couldn't wait to ask. Because Shichong was very clear that if what Longao said was true, then this matter could be big or small. If it was true, then Shifeng would betray the Wanshou sect, not to mention Shizhong. Even the ancestor would not let Shifeng go. Although he didn't have a good relationship with his second brother, Shizhong was definitely not willing to sacrifice Shifeng. Shizhong knew better than anyone else what a Nirvana realm cultivator meant to a sect. In his heart, Shizhong hoped that this matter was not true. Shifeng, your second brother and I have an agreement. Secretly help me devour the heaven and earth spirit veins. When my cultivation reaches the Nirvana realm, we will devour the heaven and earth spirit veins together. Longao you. After saying you 3 times in a row, Shifeng still didn't say anything. He had already made a blood oath. He couldn't go back on his words. Looking at the situation, Shizhong's heart was in danger. He cursed in his heart and glared fiercely at Shifeng. Longao, don't try to wrongly accuse my second brother. I know his situation better than you. Go back on his words? Longao didn't feel the slightest bit surprised at Shizhong's refusal. It was as if he had already guessed it. He had seen shameless people, but he had never seen such shameless people like the Wanshou sect. From the Wanshou ancestor to Shirpatian, the Wanshou sect seemed to be shameless people. They didn't acknowledge the bet, they didn't acknowledge the agreement, they didn't acknowledge anything, Since that was the case, there was no need for him to speak any more nonsense. He stood up. Longao looked at the 3 people in front of him with disdain. He said mockingly, Since I came to the Tianwu continent, I have seen many shameless people, but compared to the 4 of you, today I found that they are not shameless. Gloomy. Anger. Being humiliated by Longao in such a way, the 3 of them felt as if someone had ruthlessly slapped their faces. As the Wanshou sect's patriarch, vice patriarch and young patriarch, they had never been humiliated like this before. It was simply a great humiliation. Longao, do you think you can leave this place alive? Originally, I wanted to continue making a bet with you, but after thinking about how shameless you are, I'll just forget about it. Without giving Shizhong and the other 2 a chance to speak, Longao continued. If you could trap me, I wouldn't have survived until now. The next moment. The reincarnation doppelganger suddenly appeared and shot toward the 3 of them. The 3 of them seemed to have yet to recover from their shock. However, they were well aware of Longao's strength. Not to mention 3 against 1, even in a one-on-one situation, Longao would undoubtedly die. Attack Longao with all your might. Regardless of whether it was the 3 of them or the 10,000 beasts or a shield, they all rushed toward the reincarnation avatar. In other words, at this moment, Longao's position was the weakest. With Longao's strength, it seemed that he wasn't strong enough to break through the spatial interference. However, with the help of Long Chang and Long Ming, the result was already decided. This time, Longao didn't immediately enter the dragon seal space. Instead, he used spatial teleportation to directly leave the hall. Trying to leave? The Wanshou ancestor's figure appeared. However, before the Wanshou ancestor could make a move or even react, Longao, Long Chang and Long Ming had already disappeared without a trace. This again. The Wanshou ancestor was very wary of the divine weapon in Longao's hands. Even if he interfered with the surrounding spatial fluctuations, it would be difficult to catch Longao. Now that he thought about it, Longao must have dared to follow him to the hall. Otherwise, Longao wouldn't have come even if he was beaten to death. If Longao had just disappeared, why was there another Longao in the hall? A clone. Exclaiming, the Wanshou ancestor rushed towards the reincarnated clone. If he could leave this reincarnated clone behind, it would be more or less a consolation. Otherwise, they would suffer a double loss this time. But what was the result? The moment the Wanshou ancestor entered the hall, before he could even make a move, the reincarnated clone that was besieged by 3 people had already disappeared from the spot. That's right. Under the siege of 4 Nirvana realm powerhouses, it had disappeared without a trace. How did Longao do it? They were dumbfounded. Even though they couldn't believe what had just happened, the truth was right before their eyes. They had no choice but to believe it. Old ancestor. Waving his hand, the Wanshou ancestor's face was extremely gloomy at this moment. His eyes were fixed on Shifeng before him, causing Shifeng to tremble in fear. The truth had already been revealed. Even though Shifeng didn't admit it, and his big brother was doing his best to cover for him, as long as one wasn't a fool, they would definitely be able to see through the trick. Shifeng could deceive himself, but he couldn't deceive the old ancestor. Shifeng, tell us everything that happened between you and Longao without leaving out a single word. If there's even the slightest bit of concealment, kill without mercy. Seeing that the old ancestor was truly enraged, Shifeng didn't dare to continue hiding anything. He immediately told them everything that had happened between him and Longao. After hearing everything, the Wanshou ancestor and the other two already knew what had happened. Longao's move was very insidious. From the beginning to the end, Longao had never left the hall. The only explanation was that Longao had borrowed the power of the so-called reincarnation. Old ancestor, I was wrong. Please. Before Shifeng could finish, the Wanshou ancestor said coldly, I'll spare you this time. If there's a next time, I won't give you another chance. Many thanks, old ancestor. Many thanks, old ancestor. Hearing that the old ancestor wasn't going to kill him, Shifeng was simply overjoyed. If it was any other time, the Wanshou ancestor definitely wouldn't let Shifeng go. After all, Shifeng's actions were basically betraying the sect. This kind of person would be looked down upon no matter where he went. Old ancestor, Longao planned to leave this time. If there's no accident, he definitely won't leave the sect. He should have gone to the forbidden area. They already knew about Longao's matter. The reason why Longao was unwilling to leave the Wanshou sect again and again wasn't because he was on good terms with the Wanshou sect, but because of the Heaven-Earth Spirit Vein. In other words, as long as he couldn't obtain the Heaven-Earth Spirit Vein, they believed that Longao wouldn't leave the Wanshou sect. He nodded. You're right. When I left this time, other than breaking the Dragon Valley Chi barrier, I also borrowed several divine artifacts from the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family. They can completely interfere with the fluctuations of space. Next time, Longao wants to use the power of the divine artifacts to leave. I'm afraid it won't be so easy. Hearing the old ancestor's words, Shifeng and the other two were immediately overjoyed. P.S. It's already past 2. My head hurts. Little 9 is going to sleep first. I'll continue tomorrow. Chapter 1447. The Cliff of Beasts. With the help of his reincarnation avatar, Longao successfully left the Great Hall of Beasts and arrived at the Cliff of Beasts. As soon as he stepped into the cave, Longao's expression changed to surprise. The Heaven and Earth Spirit Vein on the stone platform had disappeared, leaving behind a pale white stone. There was no doubt about it. Longao, sister, has finished devouring. Before Longao could speak, his expression changed and he directly brought Xiling, Bailing, and the two little ones into the Dragon Seal space. As soon as Longao disappeared, the ancestor of beasts and the other 3 entered the cave. This time, the 4 of them came to look for Longao, but what was the result? Looking at the pale white stone platform, the 4 of them were dumbfounded. Where was the Heaven and Earth Spirit Vein? Could it be? The 4 of them were not fools and understood the meaning. This time, Longao followed them into the Great Hall of Beasts to devour the Heaven and Earth Spirit Vein. How did Longao do it? The 4 of them were almost certain that the person who devoured the Heaven and Earth Spirit Vein, if not Longao, was Jianling. If it was just Longao alone, it was almost impossible for him to devour the Heaven and Earth Spirit Vein in 3 days. Without a doubt, the person who devoured the Heaven and Earth Spirit Vein was the so-called Jianling. His face was gloomy. Ancestor. No matter what, you have to find Longao. He must still be here. Jianling had not been obtained, but the heaven and earth spirit vein had been devoured. This was a slap to their faces. More importantly, Longao had already obtained the heaven and earth spirit vein. Would Longao continue to stay in the Great Hall of Beasts? In the end, Jianling was still the top priority in the ancestor of Beast Heart, followed by the heaven and earth spirit vein. If he had sacrificed the heaven and earth spirit vein to obtain Jianling, it would have been completely acceptable. But now, he didn't get the Jianling, and the heaven and earth spirit vein was also swallowed by someone else. It was simply a double loss. Shirchong and the other two didn't dare to hesitate. They knew how serious the situation was. If they couldn't find Longao, they would suffer a great loss. The cave was only so big, and everything was visible at a glance. If Longao was here, then there was only one possibility, and that was that he had used a spatial artifact to disappear. Apart from the Wensho ancestor, even Shirchong and the others were certain that Longao was here. Anger. Endless rage. The four of them had nowhere to vent their anger. He had thought that he would be able to obtain the Jianling without losing the heaven and earth spirit vein, but he had not expected that he would lose the heaven and earth spirit vein and not even get the Jianling. It was like eating a fly. Ancestor, what should we do now? Under a glance, Longao could not be found at all. At this moment, the myriad beast ancestor's face grew increasingly gloomy and unsightly. Even now, the myriad beast ancestor still seemed to be in a daze. He took a deep breath. Shirfeng Patian. Yes, ancestor. The two of you stay here. If Longao doesn't appear, you can't leave this place. If Longao escapes this time, kill him without mercy. Both of them were shocked. They knew that the ancestor was really angry this time. Otherwise, he wouldn't have acted like this. Thinking about it, the two of them understood. The ancestor, who was always full of confidence, had failed miserably this time. Not only did he lose the heaven and earth spirit vein, but he couldn't even get the Jianling. Not to mention the ancestor, anyone would have done the same. Shirfeng and Shirpatian didn't dare to refuse. They nodded and replied, "Rest assured, ancestor. As long as Longao is here, we will definitely take him down. Shirchong, leave first. The sect needs you to take care of." "Yes." Shirpatian looked around the cave and said coldly, "I will make you regret it." After saying that, the myriad beast's ancestor left the cave. Soon, he disappeared into the horizon. Shirchong and the other two looked at each other. They could see the helplessness and anger in each other's eyes. Because until now, no one had expected Longao to lure the tiger away from the mountain. On one hand, he was talking nonsense with the four of them in the hall, on the other hand, he was looking for the heaven and earth spirit vein. In fact, Shirfeng was the most responsible for this matter. Shirfeng wasn't greedy. If he had gone directly to the cave, then Bai Ling wouldn't have been able to successfully devour the heaven and earth spirit vein. In the dragon seal space. Looking at Bai Ling, who had finished devouring the heaven and earth spirit vein, Longao's face was full of surprise. He asked, "Xiling, how long did Bai Ling take to devour the heaven and earth spirit vein?" "About 2 days. Shirfeng let out a long sigh of relief. 2 days. Longao knew very well that if the ancestor hadn't made a bet with him to leave for 3 days, then it wouldn't have been easy for Bai Ling to successfully devour the heaven and earth spirit vein. "Xiling, Bai Ling has successfully devoured the heaven and earth spirit vein. Next, as long as we successfully send Bai Ling into the Sword Chi space, is there a 100% chance that Bai Ling will wake up?" Nodding, Xiling was also very excited. He said, "That's right. This time, Bai Ling devoured the heaven and earth spirit vein. Not only will she wake up, but she will also recover a third of her strength. Even if it's a Nirvana warrior, as long as they aren't Nirvana reborn warriors, they won't be able to hurt Bai Ling. As for me, I also devoured a little. Although I haven't recovered a third of my strength, I believe that I'm not far from my sister's recovery." Longao didn't care how much Xiling and Bai Ling's injuries could recover. The only thing he cared about was whether Bai Ling could wake up. Although Xiling said that it wouldn't be a problem, Longao was still a little worried until the best moment. As if he could guess Longao's worries, Xiling smiled and said, "Longao, don't worry. The heaven and earth spirit vein is much stronger than you think. As long as my sister can enter the sword chi space and devour the sword chi, she will definitely wake up. That would be best. As long as Bai Ling could wake up, he wouldn't hesitate to pay any price. Longao, this time my sister devoured the heaven and earth spirit vein. I'm afraid that the Wanshou sect won't let this matter rest. If I'm not mistaken, the outside should have already been sealed. It won't be easy for you to leave the Wanshou sect." Nodding, how could Longao not know what Xiling was talking about? He could clearly sense that Shifeng and Shirpatian hadn't left the cave. If that was the case, then as Xiling had said, it wouldn't be easy for him to leave the Wanshou sect. He wasn't too worried. After all, Bai Ling had already devoured the heaven and earth spirit vein. It wouldn't hurt to wait a little longer. He didn't believe that Shifeng and Shirpatian would stay here forever. Not to mention, he had a good idea, which was to lure the tiger away from the mountain. P.S. Today's event will be even more explosive than yesterday. I hope everyone will vote for Longao. Xiao Jiu, thanks. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.